Welcome to the Tone Lounge Podcast, the definitive music industry and gear podcast with Jonathan Gilmet and Frank Fleckenstein.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Tone Lounge Podcast. This is episode number 13, the cursed episode, as we just found out. And with me, as always, coming in live from Belgium, my good buddy Jonathan Gilmet. And also coming to us live from rainy California, rainy Southern California at this point, Frank Falbo from Falbo Guitars. Welcome.
Hey, good to be here.
Thanks for making the time. Apart from the rain, how are you doing today?
Everything's great. I have no complaints at all. Wide open schedule, and when I'm done with this, I'll start making guitars again.
Nice.
Amazing. That sounds like a good plan. So right now, you are only focused on your own company, or are there any current projects that you're pursuing?
Well, my company, Falbo Designs, is also does a lot of consulting, a lot of work with other OEMs as well. So when I'm here at the shop, I'm making Falbo guitars. I'm also doing some OEM work for some other makers. I also do some CAD design work sometimes. So something that might end up making its way to a guitar building factory over in Asia somewhere that they'll use to cut bodies and necks, to make guitars for people. But also building guitars, for some other brands and some other companies. Then I also do R&D for Fishman for the Fluence pickups. That's a project that I've been on since the beginning. And I also tech for Steve Stevens. So sometimes I have these periods of time where I'm out of the shop and I'm out on tour. And then, I have to put a lot of stuff on pause if it's not virtual, right? Anything I can do on the computer, right? I take the laptop with me, do CAD work, drawings, and things like that. But that stuff is on pause and on hold, and I come back to the shop and I pick up where I left off. So never a dull moment.
Sounds pretty busy.
That sounds like a very full schedule, actually. But you also worked for some time, at least that's what I could find out. You were also working for or consulting for Seymour Duncan, right?
Yeah, I worked for Seymour Duncan for maybe 6 years. I was vice president of product development, sometimes VP of sales, just depending on who was coming in and out. But yeah, so I designed product, with the engineering team there and worked on all of that stuff as well. What got me back into the MI was that I had invented the P-Rails pickups. I was talking to Seymour Duncan, and so I was talking to them about licensing and the design, and at the same time, their new product guy at the time was leaving, so I submitted the resume, and they wanted to hire me, so I moved from Chicago, where we're all originally from, Chicago, Illinois, out to California, and I stayed here, even after I left Duncan. But yeah.
Okay. But so you said what brought you back into MI? What was your first contact with the industry? When did you actually start getting into the industry, and what was your first function?
Well, I've been making guitars and working on my own guitars since I'm a kid, right? So, 12, 13 years old, I was leveling frets and reading everything I could get my hands on, Stuart McDonald or whoever else was come out with little tutorials or videos and things like that. And so I really spent a lot of time, that we all probably did, time we should have been studying or working on schoolwork, focused on something else. And that's just kind of how my mind worked. If I'm really into something, then I'll learn all about it. And if I'm not interested in something, it's very difficult to make its way, in past the gate. And so very early, I'm in my late teens, 20s, I was at Mighty Might Guitar Parts, which is Cortec, was the parent company at the time, not parent company of Mighty Might, but Westheimer Corporation you had in Illinois, and then you had Cortec factory over in Korea. They had just been starting up their Indonesian factory at that time, which is where a lot of the stuff, comes from now, because they've since closed the Korean factory. But so I was there, and I was, doing a variety of things and always building guitars. For about 10 years, I got the real job where I handled investments in finance and insurance and 401ks and retirement planning and things like that for a company that worked with teachers. And so I mainly spent my time in the schools and with teachers. It was very focused. It's not the type of career that I probably would have chosen just in general, but because it was highly focused like that, that just seemed like a cool thing to do. And so I did that for, like I said, about 10 years. But I was always still making guitars and inventing things and working on instruments. And so the P-Rails was what made me go back. That was just something that I had, come up with, and I left that field and went back into MI. But for me, it goes all the way back. I was, installed my first pickup, again, when I'm 12 years old or something. It was just something I was into at a really young age and really deeply into it.
Question for you. How did the P-Rail come about?
That was about as simple as it could sound, right? I mean, it was like I wanted and I'd heard people saying, man, I wish I had a humbucker that you could split to a P90. And there had been previous attempts at things where they have just two little magnets next to the pole pieces on one of the humbucker coils, and then the other coil would be something else, like an Alnico rod or something of that nature. And I was like, you can fit a P90 coil in there. I mean, we do that with singles, like a humbucker-sized P90s. Oftentimes, those are a compromise, but for no other reason than the company who designs those, they don't take advantage of the full real estate, so they sort of underwind it, and then, you just get what you get. But I started winding those prototypes and even cobbling together some prototypes where you take an existing like vintage P90 and you say, okay, if that's the wind that's on this coil, do I have that much room? What can I do? Shaving some things off. And so the geometry was there. I was able to fit it. And then the secondary, issues were things like the P90 is usually under a big, like a fairly thick plastic cover, which means the pole pieces are raised up significantly from the top of the bobbin. If you looked at something like the Fat Cat that Duncan was making, it's just a humbucker. Well, it was a P90 bobbin. I should take that back, but it's like a how do I put it? Sort of the humbucker geometry where the pole pieces are a little bit down inside the bobbin instead of lifted up on the bobbin. And so there's a height disparity there. So I managed the P90 bobbin against the rail bobbin in such a way that the rail bobbin was up, in its relationship to the P90. P90 screws still stuck out of the top of the bobbin. Yep. In a way that was correct for a P90. So that's about the, and then of course I didn't put a cover on it. It's just tape wrapped, which means that depending on the wire gauge, you could really just get the maximum amount of turns on that, in a bloated coil without having it be stuck, that wouldn't fit in a mounting ring, or that, you couldn't drop a cover on top of it. And that was something that happened with the Fat Cat. It's a different wire gauge. It's not, they read out like in the 8K range, and so it's never, the Fat Cat always struck me as an underwound P90. They didn't take advantage of all the space, and so you put all that stuff together. I was like, this can be done, and I filed some intellectual property stuff and talked to them about licensing it, like I said, and it all played out. Here I am. I wouldn't be here talking to you probably if it wasn't for that. That's a origin point.
So I have a follow-up question to that one. Was
Please.
Your intention always to go to Seymour Duncan for this, or did you shop around for other companies to work with?
Seymour Duncan was the first place I went, and it was the correct the most correct place. I mean, I could have made pickups by myself and been just another laundry list of independent pickup makers making pickups in their house or in a small shop or something of that nature. What I wanted for that product was it's nerdy on its face. It's a little complicated, you say, oh, we're going to split this, and and we know that there's for the percentage of people who play guitar, there's a very small percentage who change pickups, and then of that subset, you're into the people who care about things like coil splits and series and parallel and other fancy wiring, instead of just saying, I had the Gibson pickup and now I put the Slash pickup in it, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I wanted, or what I needed for that pickup, was to get some widespread, acceptance, some buy-in, right, from the consumer. It would have been a small little thing if I had just done it, in my shop and released a small amount of pickups. And in fact, there was about 60-40 resistance even among people at Seymour Duncan for what I had wanted to put forth, which was, we're releasing this as a stock product. It's going to be reasonably priced, and we're going to tell the world this is a great thing, and it's accessible to all of you. And if all you do is just split it to a P90 with a push-pull, you got twice as much of a pickup than you had in the first place. If you go extra nerdy with a triple shot mounting ring or 2 push-pulls, now you have single coil sounds, and you have series, and you have parallel, and all this stuff. But the main thing, the big payoff was it was a great sounding P90 in a humbucker box, as well as the humbucker sound. And so the resistance I got was, I had people saying, like, well, we should just release this through the custom shop, get it out there for a few years, see what the response is, and if it's really popular, then we transition it over to the production floor. And I said, if you do that, it's dead, because you just now narrowly focus your marketing towards the nerd. Of course, it goes without saying, all three of us probably use the term nerd affectionately, right? This is not a pejorative. Yeah. And so you narrow. Yeah, I'm not trying to get called out, by a group. But so that's what I said is, like, if you do that, it's always going to be a niche, product. And we were looking at sales forecasts, and again, I don't share, nor should I share, like, confidential numbers or things like that. But what I can tell you is, we had a sales projection of X, right? And the X was not that many. I mean, it was decent, but we assumed it might lay in the place of, like, I don't know. I mean, definitely more sales than something like a Stag Mag, so maybe in the range of Fat Cats, something of that nature. And based on that, and based on the fact that ESP agreed to put in a Potbelly guitar, so we knew we had some sales up front, we had this number, this X number. And we were, like, I would say 5 times that amount the first year when it released. Whoa. So, wow. Yeah. So, and that's, again, without being specific, it's in the neighborhood of thousands. So the sales on the pickup instantly validated the idea, that it's something that was meant to be, you want to aim it right down the center. You want to give it a big shotgun blast, because I thought more people would be interested in what it did than they were thinking, just by saying, well, for the people, there's this many people that want a Fat Cat, and then there's this many people that want a Stag Mag. Those are the people who wish they had a pickup that split to a real single coil. And so let's try to extrapolate the data and figure out how many people are going to want P-Rails. And like I said, it was 5 times that, and then it had had a very long tail. So it was just it was still in the thousands years and years later. It spent a lot of time, if it still is, I don't even know because I don't have data right now, but it spent a lot of time in what they would call their top 20. So yeah, that was great.
What would be interesting is, did this initial resistance by certain people at Seymour Duncan come from the fact that it is more complex to build the P-Rail, or was it just that they were like, okay, this is a great concept, but we don't see the mass market for it?
Correct. It's more the latter, and the former was overcome. It was something we could overcome. I had already built them, so I knew how to navigate the production on it. And there are unique things about it, like the top, of course, had to be tooled up. But not only tooled up, it was, it's tooled up with the recess in it for the blade, for the rail coil, to be taller than the P90. Under the magnet was... a spacer, type of thing. Just so there's little things in there that have to for all of the alignment, for everything to come together. But then at the end of the process, there's glue involved. You glue the top is glued on it and things like that. And that generated some funny moments as well. Certain people, engineers like well, you can't use this. I want to use this glue and this that things of that nature and. But the manufacturing part was not that difficult, to overcome. There was some groaning, about, having to make it. But in reality, we do cost studies on everything and look at how much time and materials and all those things. The P-Rails wasn't exorbitantly more expensive to produce. You see out there in the marketplace that it's reasonably priced. That didn't do it. No, it was just that it was odd, So, and Seymour Duncan, when I went there, they had been producing about 5 new products a year. From the time that I got there until the time I left, it was more like 20 a year. I'm very, product forward. I want to see a lot of things done. I want to see a lot of things released. And every year we would start and we would talk about what we were going to do for the next year. And people would just say, I'd be sitting in the room and that's never going to happen. You're never going to do that. We can't do all this stuff. We can't, and I wasn't like, I wasn't pushing them to the point of breaking or anything like that. We were just taking away obstacles and making it so that, how can I help? How can we help make sure that this gets done in time? And consistently we did that. And so the P-Rails was one of those things. But again, so before I arrived, it was more like they had a product development philosophy there, an overarching philosophy for many years, and it's continued, after I left. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's not broken, right? If it's, you don't have to fix it. But the philosophy is more like, let's poll the audience. Let's ask a bunch of musicians what they are lacking, or what they need, or what they want to see from us. And if that means they want to see red pickups because red is popular, we'll give them red. If that means they want a JB that's louder, we'll give them a JB that's louder, or we'll work on that. And the same thing holds true for pedals. You would say, if I wanted, everyone says they want this and this and this and this features in a chorus pedal. Let's put it all in a blender and figure out what rises to the top and then make a product that has that. Sometimes what happens in those environments, and I personally don't feel comfortable working in an environment like that, because I'm more from the Henry Ford all the way up through Steve Jobs type of philosophy, which is they will want this when I show this to them, right? In other words, if I didn't know the answer, that's when I ask the audience. If I didn't know what made a most useful phaser pedal, that's when I'm going to ask. I'm going to poll the audience. If I already know it, I'm not. What am I asking the question for? I already know. And so their philosophy was, again, a little more, like I said, bring everybody's information. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? What do you like? What do you like? And then, put that into a spreadsheet, come up with a grid, and kind of then you've got some menu items you can pick from, and you can sprinkle innovation in there. You can say, well, 10% of the people wanted this and 30% of the people wanted that. I can actually figure out how to put those two things on the same knob, so I save space. I don't have to give them two knobs. So there's room in there for, like I said, for forward thinking or progressive thinking in the product development process. But for me, I was more like, let's come up with the next thing, the thing that they have not seen yet. So again, when I go there and with the P-Rails, they say, this doesn't look like anything that's popular right now. In fact, one of the people in customer service, sales guy, He said, no one's asking for this. No one has called up the customers or the custom shop and said, can I get a P90 that sounds like a humbucker that sounds like a P90? And he's a great person, this guy, and very smart, very, he's very good at his job and jobs that he's had subsequently following that. And at some point, we were talking like a few years later, and he was just like, he goes, yeah, I was wrong. And I was like,
Really?
it was amazing. And with no expected sheepishness, he was just like, oh yeah, I missed that one. He was right on tons of other things, but he just goes, oh yeah, I was wrong about that one. But it goes back to what we said earlier, why did I push it? Why did I want to see that go out through that vehicle, and also with that amount of sort of, like I said, a wide fanned shotgun approach? It was because I felt like you could blow it open. And then Fluence is the same way. I mean, it's an interesting technology. It's different. And we're talking about an industry that's extremely resistant to any of those types of things. And they're just crushing it with Fluence. They're just destroying the market, with what that was. And it's because I didn't go back and take that technology and then try to bring it back into my mad scientist laboratory and make, 10, 20, or 100 pickups at a time. We decided this is something for everybody. This is something that should go out. In fact, so I called Larry Fishman and I was like, listen, I got something, and it's not mine, by the way. Obviously, the coil technology comes from aerospace. It's microwave stuff, satellites. It's up, it's up there. One of the people involved in that technology happened to play guitar, and he goes, this can be a pickup, and they brought it to me. Actually, they initially, I'm trying to be careful how I word it. So they initially brought the technology to me or us when I was at Seymour Duncan, and I think that is widespread. That's knowledge. That's known out there. What I do is I hold trade secrets. You know what I mean? I hold things in secret that are meant to be that way.
Yeah.
For example, how many turns of wire are around a certain kind of a pickup's bobbin. I may have the answer to that question, but it's not public, and so I hold it. If it became public, if it's all out there on the internet for all to see, then I become comfortable having it be part of a discussion that I'm having about why this pickup sounds different than that one, or something of that nature. And so the technology was brought to Seymour Duncan, and it was like the coil with some samarium cobalt magnets like stuck to the top. It sounded like nothing. You know what I mean? It sounded like, it was so open and pure. Like their resonant peak frequency of the coil was 80 kilohertz. It was off the charts, right?
Wow.
No.
Yeah.
Can't even hear it.
You cannot. Yeah. It's causing and curing diseases at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my God.
But it didn't sound good, of course, right? It did not sound musical. It didn't sound good. It just had all the sound. So I recognized right away what could be done with that. I was like, this can be something. And because it's the cleanest, best, it's the best picture you ever have of what the string is doing from a magnetic perspective. No piezo and no laser light pickup system or whatever is going to be able to recreate the attack and decay, the ADSR envelope, right? The feel that we all know that we like from an electric guitar. So until someone wants an electric guitar or prefers an electric guitar to sound like a keyboard-driven, sample, we don't want that. We want the coloration, we want the give and take, we want all those things. So the frequency response was there, and then that ADSR envelope of a magnetic pickup could be there. So after much deliberation, Seymour Duncan passed on the technology, and in that time, as I referred to earlier, sort of my forward thinking way of dealing with product development, it was becoming sort of clear that if I stayed at Seymour Duncan longer, we were really going to. They had a desire to sort of revert a little bit back to that. Let's not put out so many new products. Let's go to a populist style product development. Let's do more asking the audience what they want, and coming up with that. And they've managed to do those types of things. They've had some home runs in the 805 overdrive pedal, or the Palladium preamp sounded great. I plugged into that. And so that works for them. It's just not where my head is. I'm always trying to push and push. So I called Larry. Long story, right? I said, I have something for you.
No worries.
And he goes, all right. Now, at that time, there was a company that had a liquid magnet pickup. I don't know if you saw any of that. It was some kind of a box that you dropped inside of a pickup, and there was like different, liquid. You know how like ferrofluid is magnetic or something. There was something to that nature.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
And he goes, if it's that liquid magnet, I go, no. I go, is that? I said, if I got off the airplane and that was what it was, you could punch me in the face. I said, I have something. This is real. This is a thing. This is a real thing. It's good. I said, if I have something like, are you in? And his whole thing was, the reason he didn't get into magnetic pickups for so many years is everyone else was doing just fine. They were doing a great job. Why does Larry have to make a JB? Why would he make a 59? There's no value in it. And there wasn't, it's a business proposition because they were already even a bigger play in the OEM market than companies like Duncan, DiMarzio, and EMG. They on the acoustic side, but just as far as like the size or the girth or the the scope of a company, they were broader. They had a broader exposure, in that market. And so if they had come out with just some, imported random humbuckers or something, they would have been sprayed out along, across a lot of different guitar brands. Maybe similar to the way Wilkinson humbuckers, you see them all over the place, because Trev has just, done a good job of managing, who can make what and where, and he'll put a little spin on something, And so, you might have a mid-priced guitar with Wilkinson pickups in it, and they're decent. I'm a pickup nerd. The first thing I'm going to do is pull them out and put in the thing I want, but it's a play. It's a business play. So if it was just a financial play, Larry Fishman would have done it a long time ago. But he had no interest in that, And so when I went with this, it was like, okay, we can definitely do something with this. And then it grew into what it was, what it is now. But that kind of is in line with my philosophy, right?
It's very interesting. So a few remarks. I think if we listen to that story, if we kind of look at how this worked and how Fishman was actually looking at the market, then that's a lot healthier of a setup and a angle at the market than if you look at other sections where you look at pedals. The pedal market is so saturated because everybody's doing essentially the same thing or a modified version of that same thing, and people, or like some companies, actually don't have an issue throwing money at that, so they're just and if the marketing is good, if the marketing around it is good, and it seems to be like with pedals, it is all marketing. Because how else is it possible that a company like JHS sells 10,000 or 20,000 units of a thing that's essentially a clone that you can, put together like Lego, and then you have your own, because the marketing around it was good. Whereas the pickup market, in general, seems to be a little bit more conservative. I would think, and then And if you look at what you did with Fluence, is you actually redefined what an active pickup is capable of. because before that
Yeah.
it was EMG, and people associated active pickups with EMGs, and then EMG kind of tried to move forward and make things more dynamic because they seem to be kind of overcompressed and stale and boring.
Yeah.
And they
and
tried
Blackouts, the Seymour Duncan Blackouts were the first vehicle to sort of challenge that, to say an active pickup like an EMG shouldn't be so compressed and shouldn't have such a tight, hard limit on it. So we're going to open up, the headroom on that. And that Blackouts had their own issues. They gained traction for a while, but they had sort of a rise and fall.
Yeah.
But you're correct, and I didn't mean to stop you if you had a tail end of that.
It's okay. I'm just thinking that, and then Fluence comes around, and first, I think like the initial reaction of everybody was like, "Ah, God, now Fishman is in the game for active pickups too," and at first everybody was a bit thrown off, and they were like, "Okay, let's see where this is going." But once they figured out what was going on, and also I think the marketing around it regarding artists was very well executed, because they picked out the right people to make marketing for it, and people who are in general very demanding when it comes to their setup. So it was just well done. And once people kind of catch the idea and understood what was going on, it really took off. And nowadays, I don't hear anybody talking about EMG anymore. To be honest,
right?
Like to me,
so the difficulty there, I mean, it was so hard to overcome what EMG and then of course what Seymour Duncan with the Blackouts, what they had done in the active pickup world, because in an active pickup, whether it's EMG or the Duncan Blackouts, is essentially like two coils. They're kind of go into the preamp in parallel. They take one of each coil. They load them down to sort of destroy the resonance and the resonant peak of the coils. Then they boost them when they high and low frequency. They have a high and low corner that comes together to result in sort of a broad mid-range response curve. And that's a very different sound than you can get out of any passive pickup, which is very silly to me that I don't mean silly in a denigrating way, but when you have passive pickups that say this is as close as you can get to an active, an 81 or something, but in a passive pickup, the curves can't be duplicated, right? Like I said, an active pickup, the coil itself has a peak. They flatten the peak out, and then they boost it, and then, like I said, they come in with two corners to end up giving you basically a hill. A passive pickup, no matter what you do, is going to have a big spike, and then it's going to fall down really fast in the treble range above the peak, the resonant peak. So you lose a lot of highs after the resonant peak in a passive coil. And so the market thought that that's what an active pickup meant, and you could make marginal improvements on it, or move the needle a little bit here or there to change the tone, but that's what they assumed it was. The second thing they assumed it was a hard limiter, because the EMG preamp is a 1970s design running on 9 volts. People have expanded it with 18 and 27 volts, but essentially when you pick at what I would call an RMS level, you're already hitting the peak. You're already kind of hitting a brick wall limit inside of the preamp. That's not necessarily good nor bad. There are a lot of people who play off of it, and they've loved it, and that's why they loved the EMGs for years and still do to this day. But it's a thing that's undeniable. So with Fluence, we have to say, look, Fluence does a whole host of things. It does a big laundry, list of things that you can't get from another pickup, and because it does those things, it requires power to do it.
Yeah.
That's about where the similarities end between Fluence and what you'd call an active pickup. And that even includes the preamp style, even in a modern where we're sort of parking the frequency response where an active pickup like an 81 or an 85 would have been. We're not arriving at the destination in the same way. We're not using like flattening loads, and things like that. And when you get into a preamp, technology and coil tech, when you use resistive loading to load a coil down to change its tone, or if you use capacitance to change the resonant peak, all those kinds of things, to me, they introduce even more like what I would call phase smearing, sort of cloudiness. taking away some clarity. And so the Fluence coil is on the other side of that by a factor of 10, essentially. It's has less distributed capacitance even within the coil, less distributed capacitance than a Scatterwind coil by a factor of 10. So all of the clarity is inherent in the design, and it's based on phase linearity and like time alignment, stuff like that. So for all the audio engineering nerds out there, or in this group that we're talking to right now, it's like, it's when you have a delay in the rise time of your treble versus your bass, your highs versus your mids or your lows. And that's why Fluence can maintain clarity under even high gain, is because all of the harmonic multiples that are being produced off all the distortion, they're all still within a time alignment. They're not getting, smeared or shifted to where the time misalignments produce more like comb filtering and things like that. So it's inherent. It's not. A lot of times people think of clarity and they go, "Oh, you mean 8 kilohertz?" No, it's not frequency based. It's integrity. It's in the integrity of the signal. Across the time constant. Let's call it.
What's interesting to me is that both of those things, not only the P-Rail that you did, it kind of hit the nerve with probably my favorite guitar player, which is Ty Tabor, King's X. He started using them, and I was like, "What is that? What the hell is a P-Rail?" Then I understood it, and then it also made sense to me, because he basically was playing single coils for the majority time of his career. He liked single coils way better than he does humbuckers. So, but then again, he was playing Elite Strats, and those tend to be like really noisy and terrible, to be honest. Yeah. And then every light and every kind of electronic environment is gonna, blow this pickup totally up. So for me, it made sense. It was a
problematic guitar.
It was a total. But it created a lot of iconic tones, but in practice, it was very, very. It was a very unnecessary and
yes.
It wasn't a problem solver.
Our names are both Frank, but like you, I was cutting my teeth on King's X. When the first album came out, he's also one of my favorite guitar players of all time. Yeah. I love King's X, and I was just with Doug, yesterday, because I'm going to play a little lap steel on Wednesday. Yeah, just some live. It's like a live jam event, where they go in LA. They, cycle through a bunch of,
nice
celebrity, musicians, and then somehow I'm there as well. But they, so I'm going to do that. So I became friends with those guys over the years. But the P-Rails thing, that was a really, really heavy moment for me, because P-Rails had just launched, and all of I would say fighting. I don't mean it in a toxic way, but all the fighting to get the P-Rails released, even including getting them released that first year. So I was there in the spring of 2007. They came out in January and NAMM of 2008. That's a fast cycle time for a brand new tech as well. So just pushing and pushing, and then again, when I say, some people internally be like, why don't we just release them at Summer NAMM, or why don't we just why don't we kick the can down the road till next year? No, let's get these out. So then they release in January, and it's they're going well. And it's Summer NAMM, and I'm walking down the aisle, and I look over and I see P-Rails in the guitar. I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And I look up at the 12th fret, and there's the X logo at the 12th fret. That's John Guilford's booth, and he was making guitars for Ty Tabor, and they had the P-Rails in it. Now, in that moment, I don't think I had ever met Ty yet, so I wasn't a part of that happening. That was an organic thing that happened outside of me. And I met him there because he was at the show, and so we talked a lot. But he had been using them. He goes, I was recording an album. He goes, I re-recorded all the tracks once the P-Rails guitar got to me. He goes, I just I scrapped them all and re-recorded. So that was high praise from Ty, but it was also this really, really serendipitous validation and full circle thing. This is a guy that I'd been listening to for all those years, and somehow, he's influenced me in my playing or what my ears like to hear in a guitar tone, as part of the, all the different tones that we all like. And then I make a product, and even within the product, I'm over there fighting for no, it has to have this many extra turns on it. Well, that's going to be a lot. I know, we're just going to put tape around the outside, and I'm doing all that to make it sound the way it sounds. And then he just found it, he decided to use it. That was a crazy moment for me. Like I said, it was validation, but it was also very, cosmic or something. It would have been not as great of a story if I had released P-Rails and then immediately sent him an email on his MySpace page or whatever.
No, yeah.
It's like, you got to try these. I think you're going to love them, Not that there's anything wrong with that either, self-promotion, but it just wasn't that. It was something that I came upon and discovered, and I was like, wow, that was a great moment. And he has Fluence in some of his guitars now too. A couple of Strats.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. He likes them. He bounces around between a lot of Les Pauls and Strats now. So he's got some Strats made in Mexico that have stock pickups and some that have Fishmans. But yeah, he's I figure if he liked some other stuff I made, maybe he'd probably like some new stuff I made or came up with or
Makes
helped
sense.
design. So yeah. Anyway. Cheers to Ty.
Cheers to Ty Tabor and one of the best bands on the planet that
All time
that should have gotten way more
Right.
credit for everything they did. And,
Yes.
But yeah, it is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
You guys are such nerds.
Yes.
Yes. 100%. Did you ever, Jonathan? Did you ever actively listen to a King's X album?
I did
You did.
once.
And which one?
Which album?
You're throwing a real curveball.
It's very important.
Yeah. I don't know. It's one from the 90s, so it's I don't know when these guys started. Which one?
Tapehead?
Tapehead, Dogman.
That's the one.
Dogman. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's the one I was listening to, but I listened to it once.
Okay.
And I remember liking the guitar tone, but I remember especially liking the bass. The bass is what drew me in, right?
Fuck yeah, man.
Unlike you guys, I'm not well versed. I only listened to them once, and it's one of those things where I want to buy the CDs. Okay, like I don't listen on Spotify or anything.
Yeah.
So the only reason why I don't know them better is because I haven't found any CDs locally here in Belgium. Like if you say King's X, people are like, you mean
is that a weapon?
Singer, no. I'm talking about a rock band. Come on. So that's the only reason why I don't know them. I could listen to them on YouTube, but I don't want to. Like I actually want to listen to the CD, immerse myself in it. But like I said, that's the only thing I can really say that really stood out to me. Like the songs were really cool, but there was like a prog element to it that I liked.
Yeah.
But that bass tone and the bass playing, I remember going like,
it's outstanding.
Who the hell's playing bass on there, man? That sounds huge.
And
Absolutely huge.
He will credit a lot of other bass players for influencing how he got his sound. But the bottom line is he's the man. I mean, he created what you hear, and it's based on, like having the clean tone be compressed to the degree that the dynamics match the dirty part. So when they're together, they just blend together like a they become a brick, And there's a lot of other things going on too, like frequency corners and things, making the drive be more on the high end and the clean be more on the low end, things of that nature. But he kind of sparked a lot of that. A lot of people were influenced by his tone, but to a great degree. I know I was. And if you get a chance, for anyone listening out there that is not well versed, the first albums, prior to that, the first 4 albums are a very different tone. by the time you get to Dogman, you have a different producer, Brendan O'Brien. You've got Mesa dual rectifiers, and you have a different sound. You have a sort of a new sound for them. And then the first, like I said, you go back to the first 4 albums, and you have the Elite Strat that we were talking about, Lab Series amplifier, and just a different, just different sounds, different textures, a lot more deep and rich harmonies on the first 4, whereas Dogman has it, but took a little, departure from it. And so I would recommend and encourage anybody to sort of go through their seasons of their career as well. Like Dogman is sort of that's a big one. That's a meat and potatoes of King's X. But man, you go back behind that, and Gretchen Goes to Nebraska and things like. I mean, it's just so many textures and just such a great sensibility for tone, for how they would mix together. Some tracks on Dogman, there's a like point counterpoint. There's some guitar and bass doing different things on purpose, and of course they do that all throughout their career. But then there's times when they lock in, and when the bass and the guitar lock in, it just becomes this giant sound where if there's then a part of the song where the guitar backs off or does a solo and you hear just the bass, then you're thinking like, that's what the bass, like I never would have assumed that that's what the bass sounded like as a component of the riff, and how these two things, come together and lock together. It's just outstanding.
Yeah.
Darn it! Now I want to go listen to some music.
Well, you got your next couple of days planned out for you.
Yeah,
I will.
You definitely should. And yeah, I can only second what you just said, Frank. Is I encourage everybody who likes tasteful, well-written, entertaining rock music to go and listen through to obviously Dogman, but also some of the earlier records, simply because of the fact that these guys are a trio. So it's not like there are five people or 4 people in that band. It's 3 people, but they sound like a fucking, I don't know, orchestra at times. It is absolutely stunning, and especially if you listen to the album and then you watch some videos of live shows. And yeah, obviously some of those videos are made with like smartphones, so obviously they're not going to sound amazing, but you can get an idea that they are actually able to replicate that live as well, and they sound live there. It's even more of a punch in the face than on a record. Yeah,
3-part harmonies, and again, they'll do layering on a lot of their albums, but a lot of times you listen and you're like, this is really just 1 track of guitar, 1 track of bass and drums. This is something they could pull off live, and they do, and it's tremendous. It's just a humongous tone.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I love those guys. Can't get enough. And I saw them live too at NAMM. They just played there was a show at NAMM where a sound company had 2 columns of a PA and stuff. They had it in the arena at NAMM, and they had invited King's X to play at it, and it was amazing. It was fantastic. Yeah.
100%. No, that was me actually. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I was like, there's a ground.
There's no ground. I was recording some stuff a little bit earlier today, and this stupid cable was still plugged in. I'm sorry for that.
Nice.
So when did you? So the reason you decided to part ways with Seymour Duncan was because you're looking at this new thing, and you wanted to pursue this, or was there another reason? Was there maybe, a reason other than pursuing that, why you decided to leave Seymour Duncan?
I would say it's more seasons. You go through, you spend, this amount of time over there. In the time that I was there was maybe 4 or 5 different presidents or CEOs who had come and gone. And at certain times, Kathy Duncan would resume the role of CEO or chair or president or whatever you wanted to call it. And I, it's sort of cliche to say I felt like I did all I could do while I was there, and there wasn't much left to do. I would have stayed. I mean, I could have stayed longer, but once this technology presented itself, there was two factors. When I went to go work for Seymour Duncan, I had a handful of inventions or ideas that were my own. But then when you go to work for a company, if I invent something new, well, it becomes theirs. They own it.
Yes.
And that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that model. It's not, we don't have to, it's not something you make a sign and protest about. They're paying you to invent things. They should own the thing that you invented. That's why they hired you, right?
Yeah.
But so the human resources girl, when I first worked there, she was nice enough and to create a technology agreement which said, okay, all of these things are from Frank Falbo, the guy from Chicago, and then we're going to put those in on a sheet in a box. And those will be those, and then a future, invention, whatever. So P-Rails was one of them. There were some other things with variable aperture and pickups, spreading out the magnetic field, things of that nature. Nothing which really resulted in a patent. In fact, some of my friends have some advancements or tech and patents in varied, I wouldn't call it aperture, but, the string window stuff, coils, wider, narrower, things like that. And so stuff has been done with it. We didn't really do anything with it, at Seymour Duncan. But the other thing was the design for my torque converting bridge, what became the intention bridge design. And this is the thing that shows up on my acoustic guitars, hollow bodies, and there's a little bit of manifestation of it in solid bodies as well, where I manipulate the torque in a solid body bridge to drive the energy into the body in a more in-phase manner. But that was in there as well, and it became clear, nothing really was going to be done about it. Duncan would have had right of first refusal to any of my inventions. Again, nothing wrong with that. It's not. No. There's nothing. It's not a complaint. But if I had decided I wanted to develop it, they would have said then, okay, we want to be in part of this, or we don't. And they could have participated in some way. They could have packaged it with a piezo system and said, this is a new way to make a guitar bridge and pickup system that's going to make your guitar sound better. So there were some avenues where something could have been done, but yeah, it just wasn't in the cards. And so when I left Seymour Duncan, it was two things. That's when I started officially again, Falbo Guitars, where I was making guitars to launch this technology, primarily on acoustics and hollow bodies, and then going to work for Fishman on their R&D team to develop Fluence technology. And so it was the combination of things. If I wanted to pursue the types of things that were that were in front of me at the time, right? My next steps, if I wanted to get to those next steps, it would have to have been not there. Okay. And, we parted ways. They kept doing what they're doing, and they're still, Seymour Duncan. So, no love, lost. It's all, we're talking to him at NAMM, and we're all friends, and that pickup world is kind of like that. We're all sort of friends, and I wouldn't even. There's very few frenemies even in the pickup world. We really are just mostly friends. Yeah, a lot of friends. I don't. May have been some choice words from the people over at EMG at one point, but I don't know.
It's funny. It's nice that you bring that up, because I was just thinking about something I'd like to get your take on it. Have you read about the whole Gibson DiMarzio thing where they like Gibson's battling the PAF thing? What? Yeah,
we're always. That's all old hat to us in the industry,
Exactly. And it's like
there's an undercurrent of that, throughout anyone's career in the pickup industry. We all know that those things exist,
Exactly. And to me, if I look at it, I'm just going to lay out my take here. I look at it and I see someone, Larry DiMarzio, who sees an opportunity by making aftermarket pickups, which back at that time nobody was thinking about. Everybody was thinking about you buy a guitar, it has pickups, they stay in there until the end of time.
Right.
And then
That's right.
DiMarzio
That's right.
comes around and says like, no, hey, this is a guitar is built modular, so you can change things, you can change tuners. Why not offer pickups? And then he kind of registers everything down, and then he's able to use PAF as an official product term. And now Gibson comes around and wants to challenge that. And to me, it's like it's just a continuance of Gibson being the bully, and trying to sue everyone for everything that looks like a Les Paul, although it's like super far away from being a Les Paul. It's getting sued and whatnot. So yeah.
So the narratives and the optics on it are all over the map, right?
Yeah.
Gibson has all of their past behavior to deal with when they put forth something like this.
Yeah.
In the pickup maker world, most pickup makers are upset that there's an issue with double cream coils. And so to them, now all of a sudden, Gibson's role just shifted. Now they became the giant standing behind you, right? That could possibly get something like this done. Where I sit is, DiMarzio has a trademark. So there's the technical aspect of it. They have a trademark on it. When I've heard the most effective way I've heard DiMarzio communicate about it in the past has been when they've said, "Look," and again, people living outside the United States, maybe this doesn't hold, but certain things like you go to H&R Blocks to do your taxes, there's a green square next to the logo. If you buy a certain power tool, all of those tools may be yellow. This company, all of their tools are greenish blue, and these guys' tools, they're all red. And these are how you identify it. And so what they've said was, look, when you see a double cream pickup, it's a DiMarzio. It means that it's a DiMarzio. There's some challenges to that on its face value, only insofar as most of the pickups that DiMarzio sells and has been selling for the last probably 20 years or more have not been double cream. They have been a different color other than double cream.
Yeah.
And so now you have a majority of your product doesn't identify with your trademark, meaning if that same H&R Block company had, 100,000 locations and 80,000 of those locations had an orange square, then someone could then make a case that the use of the green square shouldn't be protected or shouldn't be, as protected as it once was. And there are some people who come at it where they're just upset that a color was trademarked at all. They just think you shouldn't be able to trademark a certain color of a product because it's silly, or because if I took the cover off of a Gibson pickup from 1959, it may have been double cream underneath it. But that's like saying if I take the chassis off of my car, I'm going to see a lot of aluminum parts or something. Back in the day, you didn't just take the cover off. And when you did take a cover off, it was right around the time when DiMarzios were available, and you had Jimmy Page or whoever was taking the covers off of a pickup in the 70s. Now it wasn't necessarily 1961 that somebody peeled a cover off of a PAF sitting inside of a 335, right? They didn't do it at that time. It was a covered item. You got what was the color on the cover. There's a lot of technical back and forth as it relates to the double cream issue. I don't know how it's necessarily going to play out, but like I said, I've heard DiMarzio explain it in an effective way, but it didn't seem like they were villainous, right, or malicious.
Okay.
At the same time, DiMarzio in the past obviously has done their share of sending out cease and desist letters, so that for those of us in the pickup world, we would sort of characterize DiMarzio's behavior in protecting their IP the same way that in the guitar world, as it relates to a Les Paul shape or a headstock, you would equate Gibson. So DiMarzio, from a litigious perspective, DiMarzio has been the Gibson of pickups, in a way.
Okay.
And again, if you're going to try to protect your intellectual property, rightfully so, you have to send out those letters. So even whether it's Gibson or DiMarzio, when someone says that this gigantic company is sending out an oppressive cease and desist letter to some little tiny guy in his garage who's making this, or some small company who isn't a problem. And they say this company is just a fly on the back of a giant. I don't know why Gibson is making this person's life so difficult. We see that narrative play out often.
Yeah.
The reason they have to is because if they don't, that's how you lose your trademark. You have to defend it in all of the areas that you may see it pop up, big and small. Or else, over time, someone can say, well, you let this person make these guitars in their basement for the last 5 years. Now we see that as a reason why your trademark or your intellectual property is no longer valid.
100%,
because you didn't take action.
Mm.
You let this person do it in, again, over a period of 5 years. We think it's now should lapse into the public. Mm. What I struggled with DiMarzio's Double Cream is... since whatever it would have been, the 80s, or anytime somebody said, I wish I could get a Duncan or a whatever in Double Cream, what I had to wrestle with was it always ended up looking like, on internet forums or wherever it was being discussed, it always ended up looking like really the general population was kind of upset that they couldn't just get Double Cream pickups from the brand that they wanted. So I thought, as a gesture of goodwill, DiMarzio could open that up and say, give us $1 pickup, or give us whatever, do something so that we'll allow you to do it.
Yeah.
And we've seen companies start to do that. And in fact, with Gibson, we saw it specifically for that reason. When Gibson was suing people over the Flying V or whatever other designs, they put out there, they said, we're going to have some licensed copies that we're going to allow people like a Jimmy Wallace or whoever else. We're going to let them build a Firebird, and it's going to be licensed by Gibson or whatever. Well, you do that so that in court you can show monetization. You say, I had this person paid me to use the design. That's why I can sue the other person for stealing the design, for using it without paying.
Fender has been doing that for years and years. You can buy a shit ton of licensed Fender parts from Whatnot All Parts, Mighty Might as well, I guess. No?
Right.
Yeah.
So I was at Mighty Might when Jack Westheimer and them were first beginning to talk to Fender about that. They were making Fender headstock guitars, or necks, right? And of course bodies, like Fender doesn't have the Strat or Tele trademark, and they really will never get that back. It can't happen. It's too late. But the headstocks they wanted to protect. And so by simply going around to these companies and saying, pay us a little fee, and it's nothing is significant. It's not oppressive, I should say, right? But, compensate us, and then you're going to burn it in so that someone can't get it out. You're going to burn it in that it's licensed, by Fender. And by doing so, it means that you can now sue the people who are not part of that program. Yep. And it's a very small program. There's not a bunch of different companies that have the license, but those who do, they appreciate it, and they can make Fender-type headstocks. And there's some other little idiosyncrasies in there, like with a company like Mighty Might. They don't want Mighty Might to advertise the Strat neck and the Strat body and say, build yourself a great guitar. Because then that is implying that you can build a guitar that violates Fender's trademark.
Oh, okay.
What they want, and again, most of this it's just language. It's not really based in reality. They know somebody is going to get a Strat body and a Strat neck and put a Strat together for themselves, and half the time put some stupid logo on the headstock. It's got their name in it or something with a pun, and so they want to say this is a replacement neck for your Fender. In case your Fender neck breaks, you can get this neck, and the headstock will match the look of the Fender. Then they've started to make their own necks or sell their own necks, make them available retail, and they've pushed that kind of heavy, which is nice. You can buy Fender necks that have Fender logos or things like that. Since they've done that, I know that they'd probably wish, there were fewer other necks that had Fender headstocks on it, but the deal was made, and, it's what we have out there in the industry. So, circling back to Gibson and DiMarzio, I don't know what'll come of it. I know their basis for trying to challenge it is twofold. I think the component of the argument that says double creams were available in the 50s because you could take the cover off. I think that argument is null. I don't think that goes anywhere. I think an argument that says you can't trademark a color because it's very simple, that's a more difficult argument to make because you can trademark a color.
Yep.
You know, you can have a Ferrari red, or you can have a something, you know, you can have some, right. So when two things are combined, obviously I can't trademark a color, but I can trademark a color, like you said, on a can of soda.
Of soda.
Or whatever it is. And so you can do that. You have the other avenue, like I said, which is to say they're trademarking this color, they're parking it, they're saying this is our color, but then they aren't making most of their pickups look like that.
Yeah.
Most of their sales, if you performed an audit, would be something different. What's interesting to me is the PAF. You can't trademark names of something that would be simple, right? Or that are obvious. So I can't make and sell a guitar, call it guitar, and then trademark the word guitar.
No.
Because it's a descriptive term, and it's not, whatever. And so PAF, if you're going to make an argument that it's constantly and always been used as a term by Gibson, even back before DiMarzio even became a company, maybe that was referred to as, those were PAF pickups, and then you had patent number pickups, and now you have these, T-tops and later Tim Shaw's or whatever. We have all these nicknames that we have for other things.
Yeah.
So you can argue with them that they shouldn't, you can argue that they shouldn't trademark, shouldn't have been able to use the term PAF. It doesn't really bother me either way if they get to continue to use that one. What struck me about the term PAF is the pickup that they were making as a PAF. It didn't have butyrate bobbins. It didn't have nickel silver bass plate. There were some key characteristics that we associate with a PAF pickup that they didn't employ in their pickup. It was a pickup that sounded like a PAF, or it sounded like what they thought, Larry's version of, or Steve Blucher's version of what he thought a PAF should sound like. Much like a 59 from Seymour Duncan doesn't sound like a specific 1959 pickup, but it's to get that 59 sound.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's things about it that might not be a direct replica of a 1959 pickup, insofar as, again, it's not a butyrate bobbin like the Seth Lover is or the Antiquity, but it's still called a 59, and rightfully so, and that should be trademarked, and that trademark should be allowed. What kind of took me off the game was they redesigned the pickup in the late 2000s, I believe, anyway, doesn't matter. They redesigned it. They didn't change the name. So they put like slug loading in it. They put the airbucker technology in it. And so they did all these things to take their tech, to the next generation of all the stuff that they've been working on. I don't remember if it had dual resonance. They can't have dual resonance coils, but I don't remember if they're off balance or what. But I know that it employed some of their patents, right? Some of their tech. Okay. So now you took a step even further away from how you would make a PAF replica, and you still called it a PAF. But then just what kind of bugs me is when somebody makes a running change on a product and then they don't change the name. And so this means that if I wanted a PAF, DiMarzio PAF from 2004, like I don't know if I have one pre or post. If I preferred the sound of the one before or after. I suppose there might be things like maybe on a sticker on the bottom it says patent this and that. Sometimes they'll put their patent stickers on it to say that this pick. So then you'd say, all right, this must be the new generation because it has their slug loading or that stuff in it. So I'm not really invested in whether or not they lose the ability to protect that trademark and they have to call it something else. I'm also not really invested in Gibson being able to call their pickup that. To me, it's a term like a Strat or something along those lines where I don't really know that you need to protect it, But then Gibson just came out with some, $1,000 set of pickups that master PAF or whatever. So all these things have reasons, you know what I mean? They have, obviously they're, in their meeting rooms, they believe they're playing chess.
Yeah.
And they may be right, and God bless them if they come out of this, with what they feel like is a victory. But I'm less invested in that than I am in double cream. It would be nice to just know that anybody could make a double cream. Fishman could even circumvent it, I'm maybe speaking out of turn here, but Larry's trademark uses the term. He's not going to watch this, right? Let's cross our fingers crossed. He uses things
I'll send it to him.
Yeah. His language is such that it's like he talks about bobbins and winding coils around a bobbin, around two cream bobbins, With Fishman Fluence open core, it is the tops of the pickup that is revealed. The coils themselves are obviously that aerospace, coil. And then on top, there is a cover. And if you noticed, Ty used them as well, the P-Rails, I had them in cream. It was not two cream bobbins. It also didn't look like a DiMarzio, right? No. Wouldn't have been confusing. And people have made the case that the reason that Carvin was able to produce double cream was because of the 11 pole pieces on each bobbin. Yeah. It didn't look like a DiMarzio. Yeah. I never got the answer on that as to whether DiMarzio had a license with them or if DiMarzio just left them alone because it was unique, it was clearly looked different. I don't know. I had never talked to Larry about that. Or DiMarzio now, about that one. But yeah, in the case of Fluence, it's not a bobbin. It's not a wire wound bobbin. It's not two cream bobbins that are put together and made into a humbucker. So Fishman probably could do it and just, ignore, any issues. But Larry Fishman now, Larry is a respectful guy. He's a really good human being. At this time, it's not something that they're doing. Maybe in the future that will change. Right now, from Fishman, you can have zebra, cream and black, and white, and whatever. But it's an interesting wormhole.
I have a question
to go
for
down.
you guys.
Yeah.
Do you? Because the way I remember this whole double cream thing is that it was the marketing of the day. We're talking about the 1970s. You had Tom Scholz from Boston, that was a big deal. You had Ace Frehley from Kiss that had 3 of them in one guitar. And I think the marketing behind that was that if you have guitar players that are playing the whole world, they're going on tour for a year, and they have that double cream in their Les Paul, people are going to see that and they're going to go, what is that pickup? Because it stands out from what was coming out at that time. Yes. Right? So it's an old marketing that worked at one point, but if we're looking at it 40 years later, is it still relevant to fight for that? Because, you just mentioned, you have Fishman. You see the pickup and you see that little line that does that little squiggle, it's a Fishman, right? Yes. The P-Rails, you can spot it a mile away.
Right,
because
blade
the design
and blade,
of
and yes.
Yeah, the design of those pickups is unique enough that you don't have to fight over the color of, the bobbins or whatever. So is it possible that these are older companies that are fighting over something that we could almost consider antiquated at this point? It's like old marketing ploy. They should probably look at the younger companies or the companies that made a pivot in this industry and take a cue from those companies and say, okay, well, let's try to make the pickups look different. Because you got small boutique companies that are making wood covers for the pickup. Right. They're making, all these different designs for pickup covers. So maybe instead of fighting for something that no one really cares for anymore, they should be setting their sight on something that's more innovative for the consumers. Because we're looking at this and we're like, fuck's sakes, man, double cream, come on,
Yeah, and that's knowing your audience, read the room, right? And at the same time you're saying that, DiMarzio is making beautiful lasered metal covers for pickups like the Pia and all that stuff. So they haven't stopped making advancements in the aesthetics of the pickup. It's just that they have wanted to maintain control over the double cream. But you have a company like Bare Knuckles who's able to make double creams inside of the UK. Technically, they shouldn't be be bringing those into the United States, but there's something there where bare knuckles, like I said, if it's in the UK, they can build them there, and then they can ship them to within wherever it is, EU. I don't know where they're allowed to ship them, but if they started shipping those in droves into the United States, I would imagine Larry DiMarzio would say you can't do that because I have a trademark here in the US. And the as far as what you place value on, that's where I started saying, like, if it were my call, I would start to see, like, maybe I'm getting more bad press than I am good press on being this person that wants to control the color that someone can or can't make a pickup, and then they have to have parchment, or it has to be a lighter cream that they don't call cream, or dark white, or something ridiculous of that nature. And you could kiss the ring or have people, tip of the hat if you just said, yep, it's just a couple of pennies, or it's a little bit from each one of you that wants to make a double cream. I'll allow it in my twilight, now that I've had this great run of selling a ton of pickups and building my brand into something that's, recognized worldwide. Now next generation, I will trickle that out, and we'll sign a X number of years or an indefinite agreement with you. And by doing so, again, you now further protect your legacy. You can sue the next bare knuckles who starts up and doesn't give you your couple of cents or whatever it is. If you make it too high, then you're still the villain, because if I go to Seymour Duncan for a double cream and have to pay $17 more, I'm sad about that. Yeah. So it has to be something where it fits. It fits within the comfort level. It could be small enough that the company just buries it. They just amortize it. They say, yeah, we pay a little more for a double cream, but we don't care. We just let people order what they want. Those are the ways that I would handle it, right? I would handle it in a diplomatic way, or I'm always looking for the everyone wins solution. I don't want to fight, fight with people.
Yeah,
I just don't love it.
To me, it's I think it's a bit more profane, to be honest. I look at it at a very, very simple level, and I just think it's very cheap marketing. It's just very cheap marketing.
Yeah.
People talk about it. People talk about it in forums. People talk about it in Facebook groups. People leave comments on each Instagram account that talks about it. So it's like people talk about DiMarzio and people talk about Gibson, and whether it's bad or it's not bad, people talk about it. And if we've learned one thing from any kind of industry, then I mean, if shit hits the fan like big time, obviously you're gonna lose followers and you're gonna lose sympathy with people, obviously. But
yes. That's the thing. It's the goodwill play.
Yeah, exactly. And in total, it's like there's no such thing as bad publicity, And also, people have a very short memory.
They do. But like when you talked about JHS, a lot of times people want to buy from someone they like. And I can get a tube screamer anywhere, The quote from, I think it was Office Space, people can get a cheeseburger anywhere. They come to tchotchkes for the environment, the attitude. But, so I can get a green screamer anywhere. I can get one with diode clipping, different clipping switch on it anywhere. Yeah. I can sit and parse through why one sounds better than the other with anybody. I mean, there's a lot of small differences in there, but again, I can just get, like I said, I can get it from anybody. Same thing with a Ross compressor cologne or something. Get it wherever. But if people like you and they want to buy it from you, then you get the sale often, and that's where, when you have that bad press. That's where it can start to tick away, at your market share, because people might love the product that you make, but if it's something similar to something they can get elsewhere, they just get it from someone they like. And that happens in the boutique pickup making business all the time. There's people, I can't believe how many people are making pickups. It's just outrageous.
Really?
They can't all be experts, Yeah, you just look up, go on any forum and you'll see, like, oh, this guy pick up, and there's so many small boutique makers that are just making a lot of the same kinds of things. And you can equate it to the small builders who are making Telecasters with relic cracked paint on them and dirty fingerboards. And, I have nothing, no ill will, but how many, right? I mean, it's constant. But what's nice about it is somebody builds a small following, they have some friends, those guys play that person's Telecaster, and you got a little cottage industry out of it. You got a little business, Fender probably wishes that they bought a Fender instead, but they didn't, But anyway, so in the pickup world, most people don't like, in the pickup world, they do not like the fact that DiMarzio has control over the double cream. And so it's a lot of ill will. But again, like I said before, the percentage of people who here's how many people play guitar, this many people even change their pickups, and then of those, now you have a further subset. What we do notice in pickups is that then once somebody starts to change their pickups, they do it more often. And so we have people that go really deep, people that have 50 pickups in their arsenal, 20 pickups, 100 pickups. And that creates a unique marketing situation because you are marketing to the person that goes deep. And that goes back to the P-Rails. It goes back to saying, why should we market like this? This is nerdy. This isn't the broad spectrum. And I'm saying to people, that's not who you're selling to. You're selling to this subset, this niche subset. If you want to get, dollars out of the wallet, as it would be, then you're going to speak to this. You're going to release this product, even though it might not be the most sizzle, as it were, right, on the steak. This is the product that will sell more because I know what people who buy pickups want, more so than what's popular on a guitar. We still haven't seen the big uptick in, it exists, but I'm saying we haven't seen the big uptick in like Jazzmaster pickups aftermarket sales. It's still not significant. And yet that guitar shape and format has taken off. And do you make the case that the format has taken off because of fashion and therefore it's over-indexing with people who just want the guitar, they plug it in and they accept what it sounds like, rather than those who are buy the guitar, change the pickup people? That's these are all different demographics. And like I said, if it was going to happen, we'd have seen that happen by now. The sales of aftermarket Jazzmaster pickups would have risen would have indexed with the sale of the guitar, or at least trailed it, but followed it. And it's not. It's just the numbers are still in the noise level on replacement pickups for that. Not to say no disparagement against people who make those, make replacement pickups for Jazzmasters and really are excited about it, what they have to offer. Not that at all. It's just so unique. We're in such a fragmented and niche, industry. It's so difficult to sort of to isolate what's going to move the needle, what will sell more, product, and why. So again, that's my recap on the DiMarzio thing, is that if someone is upset that they can't get double creams from someone else, I believe that on some small level it makes them less likely to choose. It might make them less likely to choose DiMarzio for the pickup that they can get from DiMarzio. But DiMarzio has a big lock on other tech that they've advanced, like the dual resonance, if you want that style of pickup. If you want a pickup that has an air bucker, air in the magnetic circuit, right? An air gap in the magnetic circuit. You're going to get that from them. So there are a whole handful of DiMarzio pickups that I like, that I own, and I play them, and I like them. Because why would I'm not trying to have them from someone else. It's a DiMarzio. It's great. I'm a fan of tons of different pickups. But it's a prickly situation. If I were in their shoes, I might choose a Goodwill option, like I said.
Yeah.
And a Goodwill option now might be getting all the boutique makers together and monetizing double cream and licensing it, and then choosing not to license it to Gibson.
Yeah.
You know, that would be that's the that's the Star Wars moment, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I guess the best feature about this $1,000 pickup set was that it comes with its own like unique, genuine leather style case.
Yeah.
That afterwards
the
I'm going to
guitar
use
case
for
box.
Yeah, for what I'm going to use the case for afterwards.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah.
For nothing.
So this brings a question. So we're talking about designs. We're talking about how competitive this market is. You've mentioned you make your own guitars. Do you find that it's an issue when you want to come out with a body type? Always have to keep in mind, okay, I can't go with too much like this particular model, although that's what I want to, show the inspiration of. Do you find that to be an issue whenever you're coming out with something?
For me, not at all. I always put my own stamp on something anyways. I'm the kind of maker, again, not disparaging people who make the clones, but I'm a maker. I make stuff because I see something that isn't there, right? Or I want to have a purpose. I want to have a reason why I would make a double cut Les Paul Jr. type of guitar. What do we not like about them? We don't like the neck dive. We don't like that it's, headstock heavy or whatever. So my double cut is still a little bit offset. There's just a little bit extra material, bringing it strap button closer to the 12th fret. The neck is set a little bit deeper in the body. And so there's all these little things that I do where I'm not really in danger of that when I'm designing a new instrument. Some of my stuff is brand new, right? It's a shape that didn't exist before. Everything is reminiscent of something else to a certain extent, but it's never been an issue for me. I've only had one customer who really likes tellies where it is basically a telly, like the silhouette is still basically an actual telly. It happens to be a deep set neck. There's some bevel cuts. There's a recessed faux pick guard. So there's all these other elements to it that are not telly shaped, but the telly body shape is not trademarked anyways, so it wouldn't make a difference. And so it hasn't been an issue. Hasn't been an issue for me at all. And if I did get a letter from somebody that something I did was too close to something else, if I found that it was valid, I just wouldn't do it. I'm not at a loss for new ideas or new ways to tackle the same issue.
I have a question, and so we only have really 3 rules on this podcast. One is we try to keep it under 2 hours, and sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, and it doesn't matter because we have all the time in the world, and as long as the conversation is interesting, it's all good. The second rule is...
You have my permission to chop out any garbage that I've said.
No, not at all. Nothing gets chopped out. Second is everybody can speak freely. That includes swearing, as you might have heard before, because we're not doing kids entertainment. I have to do that.
It's not a family show.
No, I have to do that the entire week for a 3.5-year-old. So I'm not, I'm not doing it for the rest of my, especially free time. The third rule is we want everybody to be comfortable. So whatever you don't want to talk about, you don't want to talk about. But when I was looking you up a little bit for things that I might be missing, I came across a forum thread in 7string.org that has 400 fucking pages. And I was trying to make sense of it. And I know the basic story.
That internet.
Yeah, that internet, man. It's
Can we cancel that internet?
Yeah. What?
Delete it off of there.
Yeah. Well, you can always build a wall, right? I come across this. I'm really trying to make sense of it, and I know the story back then, but short disclaimer: I don't believe anything any government says, not the German one, not the US one, and I don't believe anything that the media says, because to me, a lot of that stuff is just clickbaity as hell, and everybody is gonna have their opinion. But what I never got together was the timeline of the events back then. So from my view, if I'm looking back, so I'm looking at 2017, 2018. Tosin Abasi is Ibanez's poster child. You know, he's in every catalog, and he has two signature models. One is an entry level, the other one is a high end one. You could say that, from Japan, and it's basically an 8-string RG. And they're already working on this prototype that he's been playing with Ibanez, and everybody expects this thing to come around the corner anytime soon. And then I've heard from a good buddy of mine who used to work at Ibanez at that time that essentially what happened, they invited Tosin to go to Japan to like approve the whole thing, and then production moves forward and they can go. And he basically goes there, all expenses paid, and says, thank you guys so much for the support, but I'm going to do it myself.
Okay.
Oh wow.
So that is what I've heard. And then boom, January 2018, suddenly you are in the picture. You're in the picture, and he announces that he's gonna join forces, and he's gonna do his own guitars, and they essentially look like the Ibanez prototype that he was fiddling around with all the time, and everybody was like super surprised, because they were like, Frank Falbo, doesn't this guy make acoustic guitars? How does
right? And
and
I had to launch, I launched my company with acoustics because the bridge was where the payoff was. Yeah. And so I didn't want to launch a company where I made electrics and acoustics, or electrics and then transition to acoustic. You have people like Paul Reed Smith or whoever, Taylor, all these guys that make one thing, then they make a shift to the other thing.
Right.
And so to teach the marketplace about what my bridge design would do, I launched as acoustic only. Then the hollow body, then back down into solid bodies. As a guitar player, I'm a solid body guy my whole life, right?
Yeah.
So I make electric guitars, as much as anything else. But the company, it was very acoustic-centric. So then now you have, that transition over there. So I will admit I don't have any deep, intimate knowledge or details about the Ibanez part of this equation. I only know from my perspective and from the things that I saw. And so when I started to work with him about the Fluence pickups, that was when Ibanez was still in development of this instrument, right? So the first Fluence pickups we put them into that Ibanez guitar, the prototype, one of those prototypes. Yeah. And so in that regard, I did have some interface with the Ibanez people, because we were talking about what would happen. This is going to be this pickup now instead of this other pickup. Yeah. And so I went to his house. We were voicing the pickups, and so then he's showing me these drawings and everything. And so if you want to go back to the origins of the situation, you have to go all the way back to know that as soon as when I saw the drawing on the screen, right, he's doing the 360-degree flip of the artwork. In my head, I was like, that's Darren. Like, that's my buddy Darren. Okay. And I go, and so he's like, he goes, yeah, a friend of mine did this. I go, that's Darren, right? He goes, yeah. I was like, I know Darren. He's my friend, And he had designed, guitars before as well. And so the origin of it is, Tosin draws the, sort of the pencil sketch, something sort of Strandbergian, something in that realm, and then Darren, he gives it to Darren. Darren designs that guitar, and that is, and then we have all of those original CAD drawings and all the original things, and it's not the same thing as the original thing. And so in that moment, I feel like that's very important for people to internalize, is that we're dealing with a guitar that's was designed by Darren. That goes to Ibanez. Ibanez comes back with a few suggestions. They have like a grid of 10 different small, changes that they would make to it.
Yeah.
And so then they choose one of those, which is, like I said, maybe a couple, 1 or 2 degrees away from what he had made. Then they're showing me the guitar, what would I do differently? So then when I started making that deep set neck version with the sculpted heel, there's still a few changes that I made in the design, how we would do that bevel that came across. There's a lot of different, there's a lot of nuance in that. You can take that bevel, and when you're talking about CAD design, you can take that bevel as part of a sphere.
Yeah.
You can take it as part of a like a loft, thing where it's not sphered, but it is, how does it come across?
Right.
Or you can sort of force justify it. You can say, I want to hit all these boundaries, and then I want you to make that, bevel connect in between, So just little things like that. But so the origins, as far as I was given, presented with the information. He crashes his car and on a racetrack and is looking at a settlement. And then at that moment, you're saying, what do I do with the settlement? Do I just get another expensive car, or do I invest in myself? Do I put this money towards something? And that's where the decision was made. There was some other friends of ours that were involved. Put the money into your own thing, because Ibanez was only going to give you one color, 1 8-string of this design, and it's a unique design. What we've seen manifest itself, what we've seen extrapolate out, is things like Strandbergs have become a little bit more, they've gotten good market share.
Yeah.
But his shape has not broken out and to become a mainstream thing. So unlike what I would have characterized as P-Rail's Fluence, the things that we talked about where something breaks out and becomes a bigger part of the mainstream, because it has a flamethrower marketing operation behind it, the Ibanez team wasn't going to do that, and maybe rightfully so, right? They were going to say, here's his charcoal gray colored one. That's what you get. It's an 8-string. If you want a 7-string, you want a 6-string, can't get it. Sorry. That's what that is. And then maybe Ibanez would have done those things if it had taken off, just like I told you about like P-Rail. So let's test it in the custom shop, and then if it takes off, we'll add more. We'll do more with it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Same thing with some flagship amplifier. We're going to make this amplifier. If it takes off, we do the lunchbox version. We eventually do the modeling version inside of our little cube, and et cetera, right? And so those are ways to put stuff out of the market, to test the market. So in his case, the timeline is pretty significant because it actually tells the story in a much better way than the bird's eye view does after the fact if you don't retrofit it, reapply. The timelines to sort of figure out how quickly this thing came into fruition, so it's the fall of whatever that year was, maybe it's 17.
17,
we're talking about it by January. Yeah, by January, we're at NAMM with prototypes. With guitars, to show. And, it was a lot of hard work and sleepless nights, but we did that, so now you're at NAMM. That's when you get those videos, you get the guitars, you get whatever. In the wake of NAMM, one of the first orders that was going to really propel that company, financially was an order from Japan. And we were and it took a while for that to come in. It took a while for the deposit to come in. So like any new startup, you're talking cash strapped, waiting for things to start to flow. Well, in the meantime, the order comes in. It's for 50 pieces, 51 technically. It's 26 different unique SKUs. In other words, there was only 2 of each thing. Right. So rather than 25 8-strings and 25 7-strings or something of that nature, you're talking about 8-string multi-scale, 8-string straight with tremolo, 7-string multi, 7 straight, multi straight, right? Body tops, right? Burled maple tops. So from a sheer CAD perspective, this was a much bigger project than what you would have thought would have happened when you said, let's make a gray one and a pink one or whatever. It was a big endeavor. NAMM ends, at the end of January. You've got February, March. The first stuff is being shipped out in April. To me, if you talk to anybody else in the guitar business, that in and of itself is an astounding pace. That is 100%. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But it wasn't fast enough. It wasn't good enough, right? So over the next several months, you have all these other events that transpired. But, towards the end there, it was, like any split, it's going to be ugly. And there's going to be all kinds of dirt and stuff that we could talk about. I maintain that I gave it everything that I could give it. To where it, was taking a toll on my own self, right? This is when you get to as an entrepreneur, you go through these manic phases where you put in all the time. It was the first time in my life that I got my weight's always the same. Like I can eat a whole pizza and not gain any weight, Somehow in there, I lost 10 pounds, and I was like, this doesn't make sense, So I had to pull back. And there's a lot of there's a ton of things that could be said. If I was communicating a message out to the public, I did what I could. I don't have regrets. And what we accomplished in this shop, what I accomplished, was nothing short of a miracle in that amount of time. And I'm still here. I'm still in my shop. I still make guitars. I still make guitars for other OEMs. Those relationships have gone just fine. And what history has done to my benefit is then shown that when they pursued other builders to perform the same task, they went through those other builders in a similar fashion. It's not an easy guitar to make. It's not easy to handle all those different scale lengths and have all that stuff come together. They didn't have all my CAD files, and so they had to redesign some of that stuff, and that's where you see some of the different elements of the future versions. And it's like, well, they didn't get they did something different in the neck joint. They just took an arch and mated it with a flat, or something like that. Right. Doesn't make it any worse of an instrument or anything like that. It's just that it wasn't the thing that we had started out, to do. And so anyway, there was a settlement reached with me. They reached out to me and had a list of things that would absolve the situation. The agreement was reached. Closed the chapter in that book. Somebody else's, now it's somebody else's thing. And they've adopted sort of the, sneaker drop model where they're going to make what they can make when they can make it, and then they drop it and people buy them all up. And then they go again. But yeah, as far as specific details, I'll discuss it with, people sometimes offline, some of the unique, things that had happened. But I will say that in the moment, a lot of the stuff that was being said was just patently not true. It just wasn't. And so what time has done for me is sort of proven that out. Just various details. If you look into it, they'd say, well, this is what it was, and he did this, and he did that, and he did that. If I did half the stuff that people said I did on the internet, I'd either be in jail or homeless. The fact of the matter is, I still work for Fishman. I still am here in my shop making guitars. I still have relationships with people that we had relationships with beforehand. I'm tech for people like Steve Stevens. I go on tour with him. We all have these same relationships. So, people say things in the heat of the moment. They say things that they want to be true. They put out narratives. And in some case, people even, I think people believe things sometimes. They believe things to be true. Just even as a quick example, I don't want to get down into the weeds, but it was to launch the company before we got our deposit from the person in Japan, they deposited They transferred $20,000 or something, to me, so that I could buy wood, raw materials, all this stuff.
Right.
And with any OEM build, and I should get this out of the way, with any OEM build, usually like overseas, you're paying for the entire guitar up front.
Yeah.
Then you're waiting until they build the guitar, then the guitar arrives, then you can sell the guitar. I had sort of a quasi-partnership relationship with them where it wasn't quite that. It was kind of more half situation. And then, of course, the amount of money that it was charging to make the guitars was very small because we were hoping to, as entrepreneurs, to bring this thing into fruition and pick up the gains on the back end. So basically, I was cash starved, throughout the entire process. And I told them up front, I can't finance this. I can't finance making guitars for you, but I can be a partner in it, or I can be a part of this. So the point is, fast forward to a point where, like on the very first invoice back, there's the red parentheses on it, negative $20,000. This is a few weeks later. But for some reason, weeks and months later, there would still be like, but where's the $20,000? Like, how do, and I'm like, I already gave it back to you. Like, it's already in there, like the first invoice for $60,000 is $40,000. Like, that's what that is, But, they're looking at their own bank account going like, this feels small. I don't like this. This feels low. And it's like, yeah, it's just what starting a business is. Your bank accounts, you can have tumbleweeds in them for a while. And that's how it works, know.
Yeah.
And, if you can, many times you can start a business or you can own a $80,000 car. And you probably don't want to do both. It's it's difficult to do both. And so if it had been very well funded in the front end, things may have looked a little bit differently. But, we all just tried to do what we could do. Yeah. I'm proud of what I did. The guitars that I made sold very well. People wanted to buy them. They were supposed to be $5,000 or $6,000, and they ended up being $7,000 or $8,000 for a while. So I don't have any, like I said, I don't have any regrets, and I don't live with anything. It's like I said, just close the book. If somebody has specific questions, they're like, well, on Thursday they posted that this happened, and then what, how did this work? It's like, well, I'll tell you how it worked, but I can tell you and I can't tell you. All I can tell you is that they had to, they had to settle with me, and they did, and we did, and so I close it. Like I said, I closed the chapter at that point. Yeah. I still make multi-scale guitars. I still make headless guitars. I make guitars that have that sort of thigh cut.
Yeah.
I have been friends with people like Ola Strandberg since he started. He was calling me. I talked to him at Seymour Duncan. I'm starting a guitar company. This is what I'm working on. So I'm friends with these people. My relationship with multi-scale guitars goes back to Ralph Novak in the 90s. I would be at a NAMM show, and I would talk to Ralph about multi-scales and about things like his theories on the clang tone, about the varying length of a string, and all of these things. And like everybody else, I felt like the 12th fret wasn't the place that we were supposed to park the neutral fret.
Yes.
So
yes.
I wanted to move it.
Yes.
And we all waited for his patent to expire because he was charging a very high amount of money for licenses. That's why it was very difficult to find multi-scales throughout the years. It's his right to have that value, to place that value on his multi-scale design. But we all, like I said, it became more mainstream when his patent expired and people could just do it without infringing upon his patent. And he has the other caveats, like he would like the term fan fret to be used for his design, right? Much in the same way that PAF would be used for a DiMarzio PAF instead of, a patent applied for pickup from 1959. So my relationship goes back all that ways. My relationship with 7-strings goes back to 1991 when I bought my first Ibanez. It was the S Series 7-string. So I'm in that world. I was making 7 and 8-string pickups when I was at Seymour Duncan. I'm entrenched in that world. There's no reason for me not to make 7 and 8 string guitars. There's no reason for me not to make multi-scales just because one business venture has moved, went another in another direction. I wish them well. They have a variety of different makers who have now made their instruments since then. I don't know that they necessarily disclose it. So if you get a certain guitar, you might not know if it came from somebody in Southern California or somebody in Nashville or somebody this or that or the other thing.
Okay.
They certainly disclosed the project they had with Schecter, where they were all made in the World Music Factory. They had a series of bolt-ons or whatever. I think there's bolt-ons that were made there. But he'll tell you himself, that he found out that it's really difficult to start a guitar company. So I wish that I could have helped walk him through that a little bit further, or gotten a little bit further down the line. But that's where I just have to take stock, like I said, of what we accomplished in that brief period of time that we did. 26 unique different items, all on sort of hard, aggressive deadlines. Again, maybe when I'm off camera, I can give you there's be some other juicy details.
I know.
It's not absent fun stories, right? There's stories.
Yeah. No, but there are, to me, the things that really like kind of stuck out of this whole thing was that they made the statement on that very like stupid forum thread. That was number one. Yeah. That's like then obviously some of the media picked up on it. That was that thing. But then afterwards, and that's kind of funny almost, people said like they kind of like everybody was commenting on it. Everybody has an opinion, obviously. But then people kind of actually demanded that you do the same thing. That now Frank has to defend himself on this very thread. And it's like, it's a fucking forum.
Yes.
It's not a courtroom. It's not nothing like that, Right. That was the thing that really stuck out. Where it was like, okay, that's just plain stupid. It's just plain stupid that somebody is like, you have to defend yourself here because, we demand it. Well, who are you?
And I don't mind it, but in the moment, like I said, we're still dealing with settlement issues, first of all, right? And I had some assurances that wouldn't be an avenue that they took. And then had heard, again, this is not based in hard data necessarily. I mean, I could validate certain things, but that when I made an 8-string multi-scale guitar for sale, that this was a response to that. They were upset about that. So they did this. And if there was any bombshell, it would be that there was a point in time when this is very early on, when it was said to me, if this thing goes south, we're taking you with us. You're going, we'll make you the next Bernie Rico Jr. We'll make sure that nobody buys a guitar from you ever again. And those are things that people say in an emotional state. And again, there was a lot of pressure coming at us from all different directions, whether it was the Japanese purchase order or other customs.
Yeah.
And so this was something that I had known was possible for months, that this could have been a tactic or a plan.
Yeah.
So when it happened, I got advice from other people in our industry, but it was just like, let's just let it play out. They're upset, I can sit here and validate everything that we did. But over time, what you have is I didn't get fired from anybody. I didn't end up in jail. I didn't get evicted from my shop. I'm still here in my shop. And so a lot of the things, and again, I don't want to put things into somebody's brain. I don't want to do a projection where I think what they might have thought and why they said why this stuff happened. And so when someone says something, there's a very good chance that it's coming from a place of authenticity, and it's also a very good chance that someone is saying something that they actually think is true at the time, and they aren't just making up something that's false. But over time, what was validated is I'm still here. I still do whatever I do. I have relationships with these companies that I do in the industry. And so, we both went our separate ways, like I said, and the easiest thing to do is to close the chapter on the book. When certain people picked up on it, like you say in the media, these are people who have done work with them. This is the fact that it was picked up immediately. Of course, it was picked up immediately. That was part of the part of the design, and so they are in a good place now. They're making guitars. They're selling guitars. I'm in a good place now. It's easier, like I said, to just close it. But that's why when it was like you said, oh no, we need his part of the drama. We need defend himself. You know what? I don't believe what's being said is true about me, and we'll just wait and we'll just let it work itself out. And that's where and it served me. I have to say it has served me, because if I get down in the weeds, plus you got to remember, I mean, he's a Fishman artist. I like that he's a Fishman artist. He's an amazing player. Yeah. I like the pickups that we did. There's no reason for me to have something that takes that casts dispersion on him or his music or his products at all. No. Why would I? It's great. I think what we did was great, and I stand by all the work that I did, on that project and with him all that throughout this whole our whole time. We don't work together now. Whatever, maybe it'll change in the future. Who knows? Yeah. I'm open to whatever.
It feels sometimes that because we have access to forums, to social media, that things that would have been maybe more personal to you guys and should have been kept behind closed doors ends up being like dirty laundry for everyone to see. And perhaps that's a learning tool for anyone that's going into business is don't take out whatever you're going through right now, which might be a big misunderstanding, or maybe you approached it the wrong way. This is a faux pas in this industry. Yeah. And then it ends up online. And it's really hard to recoup from that because, as Frank stated, someone can go back on this forum and keep piling shit on for 700 pages long over the years. Yeah. And at this point, who knows what is true, right? It's like,
yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of misunderstanding there. But, I mean, for you guys, you've moved on. You're somewhere else. But for the people that are going online and are looking, maybe their team Frank Falbo, maybe their team, Abasi, or whatever. It sucks because it keeps people in a perpetual loop where they're not minding their own fucking business. They have no idea what went down there. Yeah. And so why should you or him have to fucking sit there and explain it to anyone? Like, it's cool that you got to talk about it. You get to explain it. But my side of it is, you shouldn't even have to fucking explain this to anyone. Yeah. This was business. I don't have any money invested in this. And those 700 people in that fucking forum there, they have no money invested in this either. So it's like, why are we even talking about this shit? It seems so ridiculous, but that's a byproduct of social medias, right?
Oh, that's what we want.
Forums and Facebook group.
All we want is what's the drama today? You know what I mean? Who's fighting with who? And, I mean, that drives our life, right? I mean, it's the new television show on Thursday night, right? We want to basically open up our phones and see something that's, sort of salacious. And the truth is, like I said, a lot of it's a lot in a lot of areas it was a lot less dramatic than you want to make it out to be. In some areas it was even more dramatic than you wanted it to be. But again, like I said, if I look back, if all I do is just recount the events without any bias, without any emotion or anything like that, it's astounding what we did in a short period of time. And I know that I have integrity throughout this process, and that, you know, I'm someone that, you know, could be trusted in such a way that the things that were said of me that made me seem otherwise are not accurate. They're not true. And what was nice about it was early on, I had people coming to me and saying, like, we know you. Like, that was the other thing. I have a deep history in this industry. Like I said, I went away, came back for a while. I have people who know me. They know me very well, and I think that to some extent that wasn't necessarily factored in, but I had people saying to me, you know, as soon as I read some of this stuff, I knew it wasn't true, because it can't be true, you know? Like, you can't make, you know, A plus B can't equal C in this case, because one, me, but the other thing also just like simple evidence, you know, like, you know, if they said in that thread or elsewhere, you know, that I did something, it's like, well, like I said, you know, if I did it, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. I would be on some other life path, and so I can't go and say why, you know, people say what they say or do what they do. I'm sure in the moment it seemed like the right idea, or it was very cathartic to say these things when you were upset that what you thought, you know, you thought you were having an issue, you know. It was another, you know, it was another 18 months or something like that, I think, before they really got product out of Grover Jackson. That's not a fun window of time, you know. That's not, you know, so I can't, like I said, I can't speak to where they were and, you know, where their hearts and minds were in the moment. I can just say what I said on the forum, which was a lot of this stuff is not accurate, and so I'm just going to leave it at that. I wish them well. You know, I like forward-thinking, you know, guitars, like I said, so I'll continue to make those, and they should continue to do that as well.
But it's the,
you know, that's where I said.
Would you say that if we peel back all that stuff and we take the experience, you got to work and crunch like this, like really small window of time to work on different designs that maybe, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but perhaps those are not designs you would have went for to begin with. Was there a lot you could take from that after that, from that experience, and put into your own designs, or maybe in your workflow? Did it change something for your company?
For me personally, I got way deeper into doing CAD work. So I had worked with a guy who was doing a lot of CAD work for me. And then we lost him. He moved. And so that was also something that happened inside of this process.
Oh.
I had done some of my own CAD work. I had been, you know, involved in it. I had, you know, learned from the best, if you will. Guys who, you know, do this design work and stuff like that. So, and we all have our own cheat codes. You know, we all design guitars in a certain way. So usually when someone does CAD and then they give it to you and say, here, you add the humbuckers and the tremolo or something like that. A lot of times the person's like, that's not how I would have drawn this. You know, sometimes you draw something as a surface. Sometimes you draw it as a solid. Sometimes you don't even draw something in 3D. You just draw it in 2D because you know that the bit is going to cut to a certain depth. So you don't waste any time with other things like that because you know the machining process. So sometimes we talk about CAD as being like, you know, people who draw cartoon guitars. And Darren Wilson was amazing at doing that. Like, he would draw guitars, but then also he was a graphic artist, so he would do the renderings. So he could produce something that really looked like, you know, a completed instrument. And it was all virtual. And this was early on. We see that now in guitar builders on people's websites all the time. But he was very early in that world where he was able to do those things. And so for me, I spent a lot of time in front of a computer honing my CAD skills. And this is where I get to now, you know, now I'm doing that self-contained. I'm the guy who draws all of my own CAD. And usually I approached CAD, I had been approaching it where I'm going to carve the guitar. I'm going to do everything by hand the way that I would normally do it or the way that I would normally design. So I'm designing in 3D, right? It's the, you know, take a block of wood, cut away everything that doesn't look like a guitar. So, negative, sculpting, right? I'm going to take away, right? Rather than build positive, like I'm going to build a solid in CAD, that's like where you like I said, something from nothing rather than, something out of something that is larger. And so from a creative process, a lot of times I would carve first, then reverse that into CAD. My hollow body is like that. I hand carved the top and the back completely from scratch, completely, by hand. Then I had those things 3D scanned so that I could produce a 3D model of them. So it's it's all of my idiosyncrasies, right, in the shaping process, now captured and repeatable. And it's not just repeatable, like I can raise the tool path a little bit, have a thicker top, and then still carve down for certain things. There's a lot of games you can play now once you have that, like my intellectual property of the first carving. Now that I have that in CAD, I can play games that I couldn't have played before. So then over time, the first 8-string multi-scale Falbo that I made was a combination of both. I wanted to flesh it out. I did my 3D model, did some carving, and then eventually, put that into CAD so that now if I carve more, I'm carving the same thing again. I had some other people, like one guy came to visit my shop. He designed a headless 8-string. It's similar to that design, but it sort of has other elements. And these are things that we drew, from scratch. And so, yeah, I'm able now, I can draw pretty much anything I need to draw, to cut, and to machine in here, by myself, rather than telling a CAD guy, you got to take a little bit off of here. Like, don't do that angle like that. Do it like this, Now I'm the person doing it myself. That's a value that, from that situation. I wouldn't have wanted it to come about in the way that it came about, but it happened, and so we're, none of us are baptized by fire in certain areas of our professional, skill sets. So I have that. I have, like I said, all my own tool paths, all my own, CAD drawings, things of that nature. But as far as the overall manufacturing process, that's knowledge that I had already had, like how to properly index things in the machine, or how to, have a workflow or process flow. What gets you into the weeds as a guitar maker is, like I said, you do an OEM project for someone where they're saying, I have this one guitar and I want to make 10 of them. That's awesome. And then they go, but what if one of them was like this? Oh, here's another shape I drew. Here's another shape I drew. And God bless them, because I think the same way, But what ends up happening is everything becomes a one-off custom.
Yeah.
So I've had to sort of modify my pricing and my project development, structure a lot of times, where I say, if it's really a one-off, it has to look like this. If I get a string of 10 going, that's great, and then it could look like this. If the 10th one is a longer scale with a tremolo, with a whatever, if a lot of this stuff people think is copy and paste in CAD, and it's not. No. You have to redraw basically everything. There are some copy pastes, like humbucker pickup routes, and if I have a certain scale length and I want to use that scale, like on this guitar, I grab the image, of course, I grab it and migrate it over, but I have to tell that program now to integrate all that stuff. I have to move the bridge to where it belongs. I have to change where the pickup is located. So there's a lot of things that are not modular about doing CAD work. As far as lessons learned, there wasn't anything I figured out that I didn't already know or didn't need to know. So, a lot of times you say, well, hey, at least, I learned to set boundaries or something. It's like, yeah, I knew that before, I just,
I think
just didn't or couldn't,
I think and that's actually the last thing I'm going to comment on this whole situation. I think the reason why it happened and why it worked the way it worked when it comes to this controversy that was started is a phenomenon of these days that I call the internet power / fanboy factor. Because there are certain people that have such a huge following that if they say something, people take it like it's the Bible. And they don't question it. And some people don't even question it. That's why I call these people fanboys. And Tosin has fanboys. Misha has fanboys. There's the Kiesel fanboys. So apparently, there's also this. Every time somebody says something bad about Kiesel, immediately this person gets trashed and then thrown out of the group and everything.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I totally understand it. I'm a fanboy myself. If somebody comes around and says, Two Notes products suck, I respectfully tell the person to shut his mouth because he doesn't know what he's talking about. So it's... yeah, exactly. There you go. One of the best things ever invented. So it's I completely understand it from being a fanboy for certain things, but then again, I also have the capacity.
It's entertainment.
Yeah, it's entertainment. But I also have the capacity to question things. And when this whole thing came up, I didn't know you, but how I was looking at it, I was like, yeah, that's weird. It's just weird.
Yeah, there was a lot of things that didn't.
Yeah.
A lot of things didn't make. Like I said, they didn't make sense. And if they were true, then the future would have looked different than the way it did.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
So time would tell you that, something like this. This wasn't really how it played out. But yeah, and speaking of Two Notes, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that I just got the Opus. That's a powerful little box. I like it a lot. It's on the tech rig. I'll probably use it as my line in, like my guitar tester thing.
Right.
I have a tuning line that I use, and our keyboard player on Idol plays guitar for a few songs, and that's going into his rig because that's just an easy. It's just like a perfect, easy, simple solution.
Yeah.
So it's a cool product. And they're going crazy. I mean, IRs are off the charts now.
Yes.
I mean, there's so many good, load boxes and IRs and things like that. Steve has the Two Notes Captor X in his rig, but then he also has like Red 7 has a load box with IRs. Right. That one sounds great. So we use that at times. That's in the current rig, and like I said, even the Opus, it sounds great. And so another guy of ours, he's going to use that on the end of a pedal board as just another signal,
right?
And so inside of it'll be some kind of Fender tone going out the XLR. But then he's going to use it where the 1/4 inch is the pass-through. It's not affected by the IRs at all. It just goes out and exits, and goes to the amp. So I think they were very smart in how they handled the IOs, and how those things are, assignable in it. And I haven't used it for such, and I don't think I will, but I do love that they made it like a red box too, where you can actually still patch your head's output.
Yeah.
Your speaker out. You have to go through to a load, but you can do that, and then still apply the IRs to that. Yeah. I think that's fantastic. And who knows, maybe as I'm talking about it now, I'm talking myself into it, using it like that. But yeah, I have a tuner line. So when I'm teching, I have a tuner line where I have like Steve Stevens' mix goes right to my ears, but blended with it is my own line. Right. So when I'm, playing side stage, I'm checking tuning. I'm tuning right into my own ears, along with the mix or like his existing mix. And so I'll even tune, like I'm tuning like sweetened tuning where we're off like a few cents here, and I'm biasing even for the key of the song that he's about to play. Okay. When I hand him the guitar, and so it's pretty important. But even since I was using Moore has like a 5150 little fake amp pedal. Yeah. And it sounded great. I mean, it's like I wouldn't go to front of house with it, but it sounded awesome, in my ears. And I tune with distortion. That's another key thing. So when I'm tuning by ear, I'm tuning with distortion, with amp distortion, because then you can hear the notes modulating against each other. Right. You can hear them, vibrate more so than you can if it's clean. Yes. So that's how I do that. I do a tuner. So I think I'll put I'll swap that for the Opus, and have the Opus be my all-in-one little tone box to just feed it back into my ears on that gig. But anyway, yeah, that's that's my story. You know,
So
I think we all use 2 notes because I just grabbed mine. I still rock this thing. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. It works great. And I think this brings me to a point that I wanted to make earlier, which is it seems to me like companies that come out with great ideas, even though they're met with a lot of skepticism and maybe like really harsh critique, it's the how much time it remains on the market without going away that is a true testament. Like if you look at this product, it's still there and they still sell this particular unit, although they have some new ones with like more options. But this thing, I use it so often. It is one of the most indispensable tool in this little studio here. Because if like we were talking about audio engineering, right? It's like a lot of people don't understand unless you've actually bothered to go with like real engineers. I'm not talking like home studio. I'm talking like real engineers. If you're at home and you grab an SM57 and you stick it as close as you can to that grill cloth, you're still picking up the damn room. So if you have like standing waves and all this shit, it comes through in your audio. So being like the product demo guy, it's like, if I don't use this, you're not getting a very steady reference of my tone because you're getting whatever mic
you're going to hear
I
the
have
pick
on Wednesday
clicking against the strings. You know
exactly. If
and
it's
that
not
was
loud
Steve's
enough.
thing. Again, he's using he uses multiple different boxes. He's a load box nut too. He's got all the different kinds of load. This one sounds better on this amp, and this one loads better. The feel of this one's a little different. So he's way into it. He has magical ears. Big set of ears, and. But the thing about the 2 notes, when we were doing that, they did profiles of his cabinets. We're talking about these cabinets that he's used in the 80s or Top Gun or whatever, fine Malibus. These cabs that he could never tour with. And you certainly couldn't tour with them in Dave Grohl's Studio 606 with these 2 microphones. And if you did, you'd be building a gigantic cavity to put them in so that you weren't getting bleed. So it's the best. That's the one area. Digital modeling has come a long way. We all know it's not the same as the real thing, and that has to do with, to me, mostly everything up until amp overdrive, power tube saturation, things like that. And by the time you exit that, and you're talking about what happens with a speaker cabinet moving air with a microphone in front of it, these areas are areas where I think that although you might not say in a pure environment it has bested the real thing, it has certainly bested the real thing for live use, and it has certainly bested the real thing for repeatability, right? Like I'm going to demo 5 pedals. I have to have the same situation on all 5 demos. You can't. You can't even come close to that with a microphone and air.
No,
you just you can't.
And for the sheer
for that I love it.
And for the sheer fact of 2 Notes was the company that saved my tube amps, essentially, because back in 2008, 2009, I was trying to record at home, and my amps back then were a 94 Mesa Dual Rectifier and a Diesel VH4. So strong, powerful amps, and you want to crank those up. So I tried silent cabs. Those sucked big time because there's always this weird.
It's hard to make a silent cab.
The silent system from Rivera was probably the one that worked the best, but still it wasn't there. Then I built one myself where I could just park a garage for my 4x12. But I wasn't able to get the noise down to a level where my neighbor next door was okay with. So I was like, hell, what I'm going to do? And then I discovered
it still doesn't solve the problem.
No.
Which was I want to not make noise.
Exactly. And then I discovered the first one, which was still the 2 unit rack mount thing, the VB101.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was like, what the hell is that? I've never heard about this company. And then when I found out what it was, that's what I was looking for. Let's see if this works. And back then. The editor was still buggy as hell, so you had to do everything on the unit itself, and I felt a little bit back when I was using Eventide rack stuff, and I was like, oh, shit, this stuff is terrible to handle. But I haven't looked back, and since then I've always adopted to now No, I have a Cab M or the Cab M Plus. I have the Captor X because it's like you can crank your shit in this environment.
Yes.
Or you can test stuff when your son is sleeping two doors down the hall, and not disturb anyone. It's amazing.
You just hear the transformers, squealing or whatever. But when Steve first went to Loaders, it was the Boss Waza, and he didn't use it for its amp expanding qualities. He just uses it as the IR basically with XLRs, and but it lets you turn the amp up louder to where I shouldn't even say louder. It lets you put the amp in the perfect spot and the power section of the amp in the perfect spot for sound. So you get the right tone, and then doesn't matter what happens with it after the fact. But yeah, we use it. So we use a neural quad cortex for fly gigs, right? For travel and things like that. Right. We just did the Super Bowl. We put one quad cortex on 2 different stages. We had a parallel stage set up where they were both ready to go. Almost, played one set. 45 minutes later, played the other set at the other end of the Super Bowl tailgate thing. They're great. They're about as good as it gets. It's still not. I mean, you love the quad cortex until you then the next gig you plug into his tube gear, his real Friedman rig with the pedals on the floor, and it's just like, oh man, you just get that feeling, and that's a feeling. That's a product development thing. We've done that at Fishman, Larry Fishman was there one time, and we were working on something with, the clipping that I was telling you that some people like about an EMG. We weren't going there. We weren't going that far, but there was something we were working on, and he goes, let me just do this, and he dialed something back from 9 volts to 7 volts, and he's like, how does that feel? And his, when you're doing product development, you got to look for all signs, and he said something to the effect of, I watched your shoulders drop, and I watched you be into that, to what that was, just a little bit more. And that's kind of the magic of product development. You asked me about things like, if I hadn't done multi-scales, or would I have done, where would I be? I like almost everything, but I even really like doing product development for things that I don't like, because I really like to get in there, figure out what it is that is magic for that particular artist, and then deliver it.
Right.
I love it. There's a lot of people in product development that make what they like, which is great. And there's always going to be a marketplace for that, because there's going to be other people who like what you like. Right. For me, product development's very selfless. It's not something I really don't like. First of all, I don't have a propensity to interject my own personal biases anyway. But even if I did, I would work sort of hard to sort of suppress that and say, well, what do you like? What is it about this that you like? Why do you like Voxes so much? Why do you like the 2 notes? Because it does this, it does this, and this. And it's the feel. And when I play, I get this sort of bounce back, that I don't get with this box, and I do get it with this box. Because you can take 2 load boxes, and one of them might sound better but feel worse. Yeah. And one of them, feels better and sounds worse. Yeah.
So then you just have to buy both of them, and one does the load, the other one does the box. It's like
right. Right. It's like that's why you have to have 50 guitars. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
This one does that. This one drop tunes. This one I have heavy strings on. This one has a thick neck. This one's got a skinny neck. I've always been that way for guitars. Like, I have a jillion kinds of guitars. I have behind me, you won't see it, but it's 24 space rack with all this equipment, a bunch of mostly like different tube preamps. And it's like, what sound do you want? I want every sound, And so you would think like the modeling stuff would have struck a chord with me, and it kind of does, but I do it for real. Like, I have a Mesa quad preamp. I've got an ADA MP1. I have, old Hughes and Kettner preamps. I have all this stuff that's actually doing the sound. It's making the sound. And then that's, what I go with. And then I use switchers to switch between them. I blend them, multiple different preamps to get the sound, kind of the way somebody in Pro Tools might blend a bunch of different amplifiers. I do it at the preamp level. But yeah, to me that's super fun. Like when I'm designing something that I don't even like, it's like I get a charge out of that just as much as something that I'm like, I want to buy one when it's ready.
It's kind of similar to something that I'm currently looking at. I'm currently in the market for a heavy type of 6-string guitar, prior to that I never had that type of guitar with just one pickup, but now I want one so bad because I've played it at a friend's place and the difference was staggering. I was like, I want to.
It's staggering.
Yeah, man, just one pickup.
I'm working on something like that.
Yeah,
oh, great.
It's the.
I'll show you.
It's the fact that you have wood there, right? You don't have a cutout for a pickup, and the fact that you don't have the magnetic pull on the strings in the neck pickup area. It's both of those things in tandem. So single pickup guitars are definitely a thing.
Yeah.
I'm nerding out right now because I got this really cheap Harley Benton.
Yes.
I put an EMG.
Yes.
It's not working because the cavity's too tight, and I got the battery in there, and one of the wires keeps coming out. But I got like some DiMarzio pickups I'm gonna throw in here because I have this theory that I actually like a single pickup guitar. So right now I have this little beater, and I'm just gonna experiment with it. I suck. I have a hard time soldering, but it's like I'm not gonna do it with my expensive guitar.
No,
I'm gonna do it with a cheap ass guitar,
and
I want to learn. Yeah. And it's just because I go down rabbit holes, and I get the impression you guys are the same way.
Yeah.
Like for like the past 3 nights now, I've been on a kick for 80s racks. Yeah. Like the ADA MQ1.
Everything that's behind me.
Exactly. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, I don't need this shit. Why am I looking at this? But I'm like, it would be so cool. Like I could go for like that old like White Lion Vito Bratta sound or whatever. It's like, and I'm just going down. So I was like, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. I'm going to put an EMG 81 because Zach Wild was using that. And if it sounds like shit, I'll take it out. I'll put another one.
Right.
My house is a fucking mess. It is a mess. I don't know how the hell my wife puts up with me, man. I mean, and the thing is, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Why am I doing this? Like you were talking about the guys who are modding. I'm starting to go, but the thing is that I almost have like panic attacks. I go to bed at night. And I'm thinking about this shit. I'm like, okay, do I have a good soldering iron? Because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Do I need to open windows and air out? Is there like lead in what I just bought? Fuck, I'm going to go on, whatever, Amazon. I'll buy the proper like soldering stuff.
You want lead. Trust me. You want lead.
In my lungs?
Dude, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You're not eating it. If it's in your lungs, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. I go down rabbit holes and then I hear Frank Falbo talk about rack gear, and then I hear Frank talk about single pickup guitars. I'm like, guys, stop it! Get on my head.
Yeah, it's amazing. I still have.
No, it's a real thing.
I still have my I still have all my rack gear. It's in storage though. I don't have a rack floating around, unfortunately. But I still because I'm so obsessed.
I have it.
Yeah, yes. I just saw that, but because I was so obsessed with Ty Tabor's sound, I still have 3 SDE 1000s Roland delays.
Yep.
I have
and I like the Alesis chorus for that reason.
Yeah.
The chorus that's in the Alesis unit. So some of them aren't the same as others, but the quadriverb or the midi verb or whatever, the era. Yeah. It's a good chorus. It's digital, but it does a certain thing. Yeah. And it's,
it does. And it's just cool. Yeah,
I found
the SDE 1000, although they're digital, I think the converters work in a way that they almost have like an analog kind of sonic to it.
Yeah. What early digital did was it replaced the Bucket Brigade chip with the digital delay or modulation or whatever it was. And most of the things that were around it, a lot of the circuitry that was packed around it remained the same. So the high frequency filtering or possibly even companding circuits and things like that would have affected the timbre, if you will, or the attack decay envelope of the echo or of the chorus unit were still in place. They just replaced the actual thing that was creating the delay. And the clock and things like that. So that's why early digital often sounds very remarkably similar to analog. It's just a little bit, it has maybe a little different character, but it's very similar, and that's because of that. And then, towards the end of the 80s or whatever, we thought we wanted echoes that sounded like exact replicas of the initial sound that we just played. We wanted the cleanest sounding echo, and so that was how you incrementally moved up and up and up in the world, was to get a delay that was indistinguishable from the note that you just played. And then it was over time that we realized, like, well, that's dumb. No echo sounds like that. Like what? It's like it doesn't occur in nature anywhere. Like there's no reflective surface that gives me the exact same thing that I just put into it. And if I do that, I've cluttered up my mix now, right? So I've cluttered up the main signal. So we went back, we went back to analog, or had digital units that now have more analog emulation, or some saturation, on the front end, things like that. But to me, the worst sounding delay is like the perfect digital delay.
Terrible.
I don't love it.
It's boring.
Although Steve Stevens will use it sometimes as his ping pong, and so if you have that shooting off left to right. And it's not perfect. Like I said, it's not exact, but it's the digital delay tone rather than being the analog delay tone, which he uses elsewhere for things like cathedral style volume things or whatever. He'll use like a Sir analog delay or what that replaced his old Memory Man. But in a ping pong thing, you play you have your rhythm, and then you're kind of using the ping pong as rhythmically, right? It's set to the beats per minute, or it's set to a subdivision of the beats per minute. That can be fun, but for the most part, I'm not a fan of precision sounding delays.
No, me neither. It's just boring. It's just very boring.
Yeah.
Towards the end of every episode, we have a little funny game that that's Jonathan's domain, and it's just a rapid fire session of questions that everybody kind of answers in a different way. So take it away, Jonathan.
and I kind of tailor them to whoever is coming onto the show.
Okay.
So if I wouldn't drop my list, that would be great.
Don't drop it.
Okay. So
I'll let you know if it's tailored.
Okay. Well, I didn't know you as much when we started the podcast as I do now.
Right.
Okay. So if we look back at 2023, what are your top 3 pieces of gear that came out that year?
That were released that year? Oh man. I don't. That's a good one. I mean, if the Opus came out in that year, that's going to be one of them. I think Friedman's IRX was great.
Oh yeah.
It's also it's a great platform. Like I'm all about real tubes and then the phony stuff. I'm all about it. It doesn't work in what I said how we're going to use it, because why I'm using the Opus is because it's this big, right? And so that's a larger format, right? It's a little bigger format. Doesn't quite make the stick it in your backpack thing. And then what else? I'm going to lose you on the third one. I might have to come back to it because I got to think about what actually came out that year. If you share with me some big ones, I can tell you why they're terrible. But the stuff I really like, I got to think about that one.
So out of everything you've done in the years that you've been in this industry, I know it's going to be hard, but what are the top 3 things that you created or were part of that stand out to you?
It's very easy to just hit the big ones, which is the intention bridge design, where I'm actually I'm using string tension to counteract the torque that the string tension would have created. That is an area of guitar building and designing that it's very rare that you get something for nothing, right? That you can actually unlock headroom that didn't exist before. We're always working within, stretching the limits of something, right? And we keep bumping the ceiling up and bumping the ceiling up, or getting closer to the ceiling. That's an area in physics where I was somehow able to crack that code and create, get a something for nothing. And then the obvious ones are all of Fluence technology, developing that with the guys at Fishman. The Fishman R&D team is, as far as within our industry, is second to none. I've never worked with an R&D team that was more capable and also understanding of what we're going for. A lot of times you can have the capable geek who has their own opinions or just doesn't get it, or always wants to put the flux capacitor on everything that they're designing, or wants to kind of take over. Fishman's R&D team is great, and then of course you got to go P-Rails, because that's why I'm even here. I had a friend, Kevin Geyer, who invented the tremolo.
Oh yeah.
You turn the screws, you shut off your tremolo. And in talking to him, he applied for his patent. It was issued. He licensed the tremolo with all parts, and they had a partnership deal. And that he was if he can do it, then so can I. And he talked me through a lot of this stuff as well. I stand on the shoulders of giants, right? I mean, I didn't do any of this stuff, out of thin air. I always, will have somebody to credit. To credit for the places that I ended up in life, but yeah, that was those are the easiest. I mean, it's top three simple: P-Rails, Intention Bridge, and Fluence.
Cool. Just a little side note. I had a P-Rails in a guitar. This was the first time I tried to mod one of my guitars. It was similar to what I got over here, but many, many years ago. I didn't know what I was doing, but I managed to pull it off. Yeah. I loved the pickup, hated the guitar, and like an idiot, I was afraid to take it back out. I sold the guitar with the pickup in it.
As
and then
is,
I'm like, I could have taken out the pickup and kept it. So I've never played one again, but at some point, I'm pretty sure I'm going to buy another one.
Yeah.
Or maybe a set and put it in one of my guitars if I don't try Fishman first. But just a little side note there. So talking about guitar pickups, besides what you've worked on, like throughout all the pickups you've tried, what are your top three? That could be from like a specific model or from any company that you can think of.
Right. Okay. So Fluence makes that easy because there's 2 voices or 3 voices within each pickup, right? So it's very easy for me to like the Fluence Classic, which covers PAF and hot rodded sounds, and also even like that neck pickup gets a sound that I can't wind. So I'm very, very happy about that. Like I can make sounds within Fluence that you can't spin a coil and produce the crystalline highs along with a beefy low mid. Like I can't extract that from a passive coil, from a wire wound coil. Right. So that's easy. That's a bit of a desert island pickup because I can do kind of anything, with those. I was never a huge JB fan, but I did like them, in the late 80s, and I have a double cream butyrate 70s JB that would have been from the earliest of early. And even my friends who were at Seymour Duncan, at the time, I showed one to that guy. He was like, that's a pickup that launches a company right there. You know what I mean? There's some magic in it. And so, a JB that was made back then with a butyrate bobbin, it says the JB model on it. That's a bit of a different beast. Nothing against the JB they produce today, but the JB they produce today wouldn't be in my top 20 personally. But that old JB, that I love it. And then, man, if I had to come up with like a top fave, a fave that has a unique quality, it would probably be the G&L magnetic field design pickup.
Oh yeah.
So like the S500 pickup in the neck, or their giant P90 one. And Fluence just came out with actual P90s, not the ASAT size, but P90s that are just phenomenal. The 3 voices and stuff. But the ASAT, the Leo Fender thing with the magnetic field design, that's a pickup that I can love in certain scenarios where it becomes, I love it as a Strat neck pickup. I love the ASAT, MFDs as a neck and bridge, or all three. I have a guitar with all three. And so I love those. But coming up, I was, there's a lot of Bartolinis that I loved, even for guitar, not just bass. There was APC was a company that was run by Mel Lace, who was a brother to Don Lace. Those pickups, certain ones in there I love. So yeah, I have a whole stable of pickups that are very unique to that one instrument and that one guitar and whatever. I mean, there's a T-top in this one. Here, this blue guitar, there's a T-top in the neck. In that particular guitar, there'll never be a better neck pickup in that guitar for what I want it to be.
Right.
T-tops aren't my favorites. They never will be. That one, all day. I could play that one. That's a Desert Island guitar. I love PAF Pros in the neck of a guitar that has 24 frets. I don't like it in a 22 fret guitar.
Oh yeah.
But I like it in a 24. So there's certain combinations like that. DiMarzio Super 2 in the neck, Super Distortion in the bridge, coil split options, to get that funky sound. Those are recipes that I'm not going to get them any other way. So like I said, I have guitars that have DiMarzios, Duncans, Bartolinis, APC, all kinds of stuff. I have a general, I usually don't have a guitar with an EMG. I usually don't have a guitar with a lace sensor in it. Nothing against those pickups, but just everyone's got a different right hand. Everyone's got some vocabulary that they want to come out of the instrument. And so, those are generally not the thing. But yeah, hopefully I've sort of given you a top 3 with a backstory.
Yeah. Very good one. So this brings me to my last question, and believe me, I could keep asking questions for the next hour, but this is really interesting. Yeah. But I know we have to keep it as short as we can.
We might have to become actual friends. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's looking for. You're gonna be, no one's looking for new friends, but sometimes it's unavoidable.
So my last question for you, Frank, is the desert island question. So let's say I told you you're going somewhere, you can just bring one amp, one guitar, and select few pedals. What would that look like?
All right. Does the island have electricity?
It does. You don't even have to worry about it. You can bring anything you want.
I mean, I have a 68 Fender Showman that I've had since I was a kid. And over time, you start to learn things like that's kind of what a Dumble's power section or whatever is based on as well. And so I like Dumbles. I like the 68 Showman. My 68 Showman is kind of a platform, right? So then I would be asking the pedals to be the drive sound. So now I'm probably using some kind of a tube pedal as the drive section, something like the Friedman, or in that realm, right, where I can get a lot of gain range, and analog delay, and maybe an analog delay that has modulation, so you can monkey with that, and which the Deja Vu delay, I did that when I was at Duncan. And that one, I have a bucket brigade in it. You can modulate it so that it can become a chorus. It can be a digital delay. It can, it covers all those grounds. So something like that. And then maybe because it's anechoic desert island, you're not inside of a room, you might need reverb. If you didn't, then it would be something like an octave or an envelope filter. I'm all about some of the wacky stuff like that. So yeah, maybe, I don't know, does that help? Did I leave out a guitar?
Yeah.
I mean, the guitar would have to be, it has to be a humbucker, single humbucker, just because you got to have, at that point, you're stuck needing versatility rather than, above everything else. And then that I have another guitar like that. So all 3 Fluence where you've got all 3 voices available.
Nice.
Fluence really did when you market something as versatile, like a P-Rails, you're suggesting that some of the things will be compromised because I'm going to try to pack all of the things into one package. Fluence doesn't do that. Fluence, any particular thing that the Fluence is attempting to do, it's the best version of whatever that is inside the guitar. There's not a compromise to it at all. So it's weird. We were talking earlier in Fluence development, like kind of not shying away, but like being very careful about using that word versatility because we knew the baggage that came with it. It's like, oh, great, you're going to put this active system in your guitar. It's got a bunch of different EQ or whatever, which is not what it is. No. It's actually voicing preamps in tangent with the coils, and it's a holistic approach to making these tones. And so that's a weird conundrum trying to decide, should I be invoking the phrase versatile, or does that have a thought? And it's like I said, the same thing with active. Oh, those are active pickups? Well, they use a battery. Maybe that's where we stop, just stop there. Yeah. I have to use a battery to make this thing happen. I got to use a battery to make this work too. I can't. What am I turning a crank on the thing and dial rotary? Like, it takes a battery to do what it does. So. True. Sorry, some guitars won't have batteries. I don't have Fluence in all my guitars. I have Fluence in some. Some of my guitars don't, for that reason. Anyway.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love the answer. Perfect.
Good.
Well, what remains is to thank you so much for your time. I certainly have learned a ton of stuff. And some stuff was known to me in some way, but it's always great to pick up somebody else's brain on certain topics, and someone with experience in the industry. So thank you so much for your time. Maybe at some point we can do this again, because I think there are a shit ton of things we could talk about.
Next time we'll tackle the Tonewood debate. Okay, bye.
Yes.
Perfect. Next time we talk about Tonewood. Good idea.
I promise you I can solve that one for you. I promise you I can end that one.
And followed up by, is tone in the fingers? Is it in the hands?
Of course.
Let's be so controversial. We're just gonna pack him up. But we make like the shortest podcast we can and just state opinions, and we bail.
Yeah, if you want to do that one day, we can knock down all of like the hot topics. The guy who puts strings on a desk. We can knock all that stuff down in one shot. If you want.
Let's do that and air the episode on April 1st.
Yes.
to confuse the shit out of people.
Well, that's the crazy part. I mean, everyone has their opinions, but I mean, in the pickup world, I have hard science on a lot of this stuff. We've done R&D in certain things, so I mean, I have definitive answers to it. But even when I go out and say something, it doesn't matter because someone goes, "That's your opinion." Like, okay, is it though? Is it? Like, how many people in the world do you know who can sit there with an R&D room with a Fluence coil that has perfect frequency response all the way out to 80 kilohertz and down to DC where we have to filter at 10K and below anyways? It's like nobody's had that experience, and yet I'm just still some guy
where people think the earth is flat and that reptilians rule the world.
Yeah. Right. Okay? And only one of those things is true.
Exactly.
No, I'm just kidding.
And we're going to say which one.
Follow, like and share, subscribe. Next time we'll tell you which one is true.
We'll tell you who the reptilians are.
Next time we'll tell you who's... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
And just put the glasses on. You can see it, right?
Exactly. Next time I'm going to wear my tinfoil hat just to be sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. All right.
Sounds good.
And everybody who listened in, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we're going to see you next week. Bye. Cheers.
Cheers.
See you.